And that's foul. Make sure the trash makes it to the trash can.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I can get everybody to grab their seats, we're going to get started here pretty quickly. All right. I'm going to call to order the concurrent meeting for November 6, 2017. It's a concurrent meeting of the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners, Reno City Council, Sparks City Council, and the Truckee Meadows Water Authority. So at this time, Mr. Joel Grace, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please, for the County Commissioners?
Certainly. Chair Bob Lucy.
Here.
Vice Chair Marcia Burke-Bigler.
Here.
Kitty Jung.
Present.
Von Hartung.
Here.
Jeannie Herman is absent today. County Manager John Slaughter. Assistant District Attorney Paul Liparelli.
Here.
I'm Nancy Parent, County Clerk. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right. Madam Mayor.
All right. Thank you very much.
Is it on?
There you are.
Oh, okay, great. City of Reno. May I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Breckus, absent. Dewar.
Here.
Delgado. McKenzie. Jardin. Bobzien. Cheevy.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum.
Thank you very much.
All right. And Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Smith.
Teresa, can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Martini, absent. Council members Abbott, absent. Lawson. Smith.
Here.
Bybee, absent. Dare.
Here.
Acting City Attorney Eiding. And Acting City Manager Neil Kreutz. Thank you. We have a quorum.
All right.
Thank you.
And then Commissioner Hartung, do you want to do a
Truckee Meadows Water Authority.
Truckee Meadows Water Authority, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Folsom.
Good
There
morning.
you are.
Member Ron Smith.
Here.
Member Naomi Dewar.
Here.
Member Jenny Breckus. Absent. Alternate Christopher Dare.
Here.
Member Jean Herman absent. Member Neoma Jardin. Acting Chair Von Hartung.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. All right. At this time this morning, I want to leave, we had, over the weekend, before we get started this morning, there was a massive tragedy, again, another tragedy in Texas. And so I'd like to hold a quick moment of silence, please, a brief moment of silence for the victims that lost their lives in the tragedy. Thank you, everybody. Okay, at this time, we are on to public comment. Madam Clerk, it looks like I have quite a few signed in this morning. So as I would do in most of our commission meetings, I will call you and I'll call the next name following. And if I just have you queue up and get ready to come on down. So first this morning, I have Mr. Rick Snow.
Rick Snow, Washoe Valley. There's a couple of things that come to mind today. We have a situation out in Lemon Valley where builders are coming in and making adjustments to the master plan. The county's seen fit to make large lots out there and put all the horse people out there doing their thing. Now they want to bring in high-density people and building to the area, which is going to be a conflict. There's going to be flies, there's going to be odors that aren't acceptable people out there. And I think the city and the county need to get together when somebody wants to take a piece of property out of the county and put it in the city just for the reason of making an run on the regulations there. I don't want to go with the county because they're too restrictive, so they go with the city. There needs to be a tie between the lots. It shouldn't be a footstep. There should be an umbilical cord between each piece of ground so that we don't have one piece of property or one subdivision out in the valley that is cut off from the rest in the county while the rest of the property goes to the city. Now, I noticed that on the board up here we have a thing that says a mission statement. Provide, sustain, healthy, secure, and safe, secure, and healthy thing. If you're out in Lemon Valley, you'll see that that's not the way it is. Out in front, there's a little sign that says, we say yes, we try not to say no. I think it's time to follow up on your mission statement. When you say it, when you print it, let's follow by. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Snow. Next, I have Mr. William Stewart, followed by Mr. Wes Griffin.
And Mr. Stewart provided a handout, which I'll distribute to the board.
Good morning, Mr. Stewart.
Good morning, elected officials. Thank you very much for your time. So as I was here last month talking about the Reno Fire Show that's taking place at the Grand Sierra these next 4 days, I know water is a very important topic. Another important topic is public safety. We have gathered 10 Western states to talk about not only medical fire as well as leadership classes. Those classes will be taking place at the Grand Sierra over the next 4 days. Everything from medical marijuana to active shooters. Commissioner, I echo your sentiments so far as those people in the church. We can't open the paper these days without having some type of tragedy. So one of the best things that we can do is do what? Is to work collaboratively with other local municipalities as well as state and local government to provide for the future for not only our safety but our children's safety, because what is the definition of society is hopefully leaving it better for our children from what we have right now. If we can continue to work together, not only at the local level but the state level, we can bring those resources together. We're coming up on the anniversary of a very historic fire in the Collin Ranch area. We had resources from all over the state as well as other states. So working together is the best way to plan for the future, because we know, just as surely as the winds blow in Nevada, that those events will happen again. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the work you're doing, and hopefully I can see you guys down at the Grand Sierra over the next 4 days. And if you need any flyers, I'll leave the rest from here. Thank you very much for your time. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Next, Mr. Wes Griffin, followed by Mrs. Liz Griffin.
Good morning. I'm Wes Griffin, and I'm here to speak in favor of saving Wild Creek. You've all, I'm sure, read the headlines in our local paper about how Washoe County critics and are saying that Washoe County School District is being dishonest in their portrayal of Wild Creek being the best place to build a high school. And that all begins from the very beginning. Before Washoe County and the RSCVA got together to suggest that Wild Creek be used as a high school, there was no public input. In fact, it was done all under the radar, so to speak. People on the RSCVA board were not even aware of what was going on. There was some mention that there were signs put out in our area, but nobody in our group, and I heard of nobody that also saw any public notice of this. When we heard that this was being planned and discovered that they had not even done their homework, they had not even done any investigation of any other sites, and this is stated publicly by them when they said there was no Plan B. Well, can you imagine spending $200, $300, $400 million without even considering an alternate plan? It's ludicrous, ludicrous. And once that was brought out that there was no Plan B, then suddenly we come up with a Plan B. And not only is there a Plan B, there's 9 other plans. There's all kinds of problems with that report. Number one, they still did not allow any public input. The people that did the report have a vested interest in agreeing with the Washoe County School District, and part of the people were employees of the Washoe County School District. So what would we expect from that kind of report? In the report, there's obvious flaws. They talk about concerns about their Plan A, and they say one of the concerns is that it's already spoken for. Well, it doesn't take 60 to 70 acres for a fitness center or a soccer field. The other thing, too, is they say there's some concern, in one newspaper article said there's concern about children negotiating the hills up there. Well, guess what? There's already a high school up there, and children are already doing it. They talk about problems being with the terrain up there. So the first two sites that they say there's a problem with terrain, and then the third site, the terrain is similar, but they like the site. So the report is flawed. So I would encourage everybody to really look at this very closely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Next, I have Miss Liz Griffin, followed by Mr. John Hesse.
Can everybody hear me? I'm accused of not speaking up, so, okay. I'm also here to speak about Wild Creek, obviously. Let me say, first of all, I'm not a golfer. I don't golf. If you saw me trying to golf, it would bring tears to your eyes. So this is not golf. This is not about golf. This is about open spaces. This is about limited green space that we have available in the city of Sparks. It's about proper utilization of taxpayer funds. And we have spoken many, many times about the lack of transparency with regard to the Washoe County School District and I believe, lack of accountability for the cost overruns that have suddenly surfaced, which to me is probably the tip of the iceberg. What more is to come? You and I both know as consumers, if we decided as a family that we needed a new car, we'd go out, we'd check out the very best possibilities, we would match it to our budget, okay? And if we're wise consumers, we would make our decision based upon that. We have X amount of funds to spend. If then we go to purchase the car and we find out that the cost has come up by 50%, what will we do? Recklessly say, oh, well, we don't have it in our budget, but we're going to buy it anyway? Or would we start looking at alternatives? I believe that the Washoe County School District needs to do exactly that. I think that the cost overruns that we're aware of so far are shocking. I'm not sure that I believe in the reasons for it. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. Next, I have Mr. John Hesse, followed by Ms. Darlene Hesse.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me? Paul? Hi, good morning. Just checking. Hey, I'm speaking against the high school at Wild Creek. There are just so many things about it that aren't going to work out that I don't even quite know where to start. First, we were watching this last Sunday, a Face the State. There was a spokesman from the Washoe County, or the Truckee River Flood Project by the name of Jay Alden. And he painted a kind of a bad picture of, not bad, but a terrifying picture of with all the water we got this year. If we get this much water next year, we're going to really be in trouble. Of course, he's got a lot more deeper pockets, I guess, to work with than we do. But if you take Wild Creek Golf Course, and it is in a floodplain, I'm an insurance agent by trade. And I've sold flood insurance, and I sure wish I could sell the flood policy on the Wild Creek Golf Course, because I'd be retired by now. Thank you. Come to my office later now. No, but it would be, it's in a floodplain. A parking lot at a high school is not going to soak up any water. And I would think that you could probably remedy any of this stuff if you had enough money. Well, the school district is spending a lot of money, or wants to spend a lot of money on this particular high school. And they've got a lot of those schools to build also. So if they run over budget on this school, what happens to the other schools? Do they come to the public again and say, we need some more money? We're in Hawk now, but we need some more money. I don't know. It's just hard for me to fathom as a father and a grandfather that we're kind of putting this kind of a budget constraint on these kids. I mean, I guess the government can spend money that they don't have. I can't spend it in my insurance office, I know that. Anyway, I just can't hardly believe that the flood control isn't going to be more of an issue. I mean, we have traffic, and it took me half an hour to get here. I live next to Wild Creek. It took me half an hour to get here, and I'm glad I started early. And the people that were with me, they were running a little bit late too. But anyway, you folks got a big project to do, but I hope that you would consider thinking that maybe we keep this as a golf course. Maybe a private entity could go ahead and run it, similar to Sierra Sage, because the overrun on this project is going to be just more than we can stand. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go to work now, so have a good day, all of you.
Thank you, Mr. Hesse. Next, I have Miss Darlene Hesse, followed by Miss Tammy Holt-Still.
Okay, bye. Good morning, everyone. I'm here again for Wild Creek Golf Course. And not only just for the people, I'm here for the animals, the wildlife. This is a beautiful area. I believe all the knowledge that I have heard about this project will be a $1 billion boondoggle. And honest to God, I really believe there will not be enough money to build other schools on the count of this project. Now, this was entered on the ballot as the Wild Creek area. You did not have the Wild Creek Golf Course. The people were very misled, and I think if it was put in their Wild Creek Golf Course, as much as I see everybody playing there now, it seems to me that right now they're playing over there more than I've seen for the year, and supposedly there's nothing on the calendar. So it's just unbelievable. I'm for schools, I'm for education, but I'm not for stupidity. And I think that this is really a very stupid thing to be doing. And I think all you people are wonderful people out there, but sometimes I wonder if you're really in reality with the rest of the people who live there. You know, I've lived there for 40 years. It is just a gorgeous area to tear apart. $30 million, take down a $30 million project, the only one that could bring some money for Washoe County. If that wasn't run by Washoe County or the RSCVA, and it was run by a private entity, I believe that golf course could really bring Sparks and Reno and Washoe County a lot of money and help with the schools and the cost of everything. But just to keep on spending all this money and not to have any Mr. Eckhart coming to a meeting at the RSCVA and Mr. Caroselli saying, how much is this going to cost? Do you have anything of proof? Can you show us? You expect us to go along with you? I'm in limbo. Well, we are in limbo also. We hardly know anymore, except we know all the different problems with that golf course. It's a floodplain, and in Houston they have a floodplain. Our dams are all full, and then when we have a floodplain, and we have blacktop all over there for the schools, and those schools are put out of commission for 2 or 3 months. That's going to be a terrible sight, and all you people are going to be responsible for doing this. This is a lovely area. Don't do this. I'm begging you people. This needs to be a park, if anything. Don't put a school in this area that will cost a fortune for the taxpayers. We've already paid $30 million for it. Well, thank you very much. I hope that some of this helps your thoughts.
Thank you, Ms. Hesse. Next, I have Ms. Tammy Holt-Still, followed by Ms. Victoria Edmondson. Can we get the overhead, please?
Good morning, commissioners, council, board members. Tammy Holt-Still, Lemon Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. The water's still there. I'm still here for the record. Regrettably, I have to start off with some very disgusting and horrifying news. Washoe County has announced to residents in Lemon Valley they will no longer receive assistance, but they cannot return to their homes. For example, the senior citizens that are standing up behind me. He is a disabled veteran. How could you treat these people this way? It is sickening. Second, the red-tagged residents out in Lemon Valley, receiving a letter telling them that they need to get their homes repaired, and they haven't received any assistance to do so. Washoe County Commissioners and staff making negative, disrespectful comments about Lemon Valley residents as a whole to other political officials and professionals. At this time, Washoe County and the City of Reno have yet to do their fiduciary responsibility. This is not a state or federal emergency or response requirement. This is yours. You need to do the following. You see the people in the background, they feel the same way. You need to, number one, assist the residents displaced by the effluent waters generated by Washoe County and the City of Reno's sewer plants. Pay for their housing until they can return to their homes. Pump your effluent water out of Swan Lake now, not 10 years from now. Protect all the homes from the flooding currently, including the church, which have not been. Urge TRC, the City of Reno, and TMRPA to fund the HUD for assistance to rehabilitate their homes. Put a moratorium on all construction or attachment to the sewer plants, Washoe County and the City of Reno. You have 2 plants out there that are causing this situation. And this picture right here, this needs to stop. This was done on the corner of Lear and Stead Boulevard in the last 2 weeks. Those pipes are going to be whatever it's going to be, whether it's stormwater or sewer, it's going to end up in Swan Lake. Swan Lake is overflowing right now. We don't need it. It's time to stop. It's time to pay attention to your infrastructure first and quit damaging everybody else. It goes back to your backyard is messing up my front yard, and it's time to fix it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holtstill. Next, I have Ms. Victoria Edmondson, followed by Ms. Kathleen Shoup. Good morning.
Good morning. I am here to comment on what's going on in Cold Springs. The White Lake Playa is full. If you don't believe me, go out there and look. And if we have another wet winter, we're going to be over the 395. It's just right there. I am concerned about the Stonegate development because the water treatment facility out in Cold Springs is not able to take care of any more sewage. When it was expanded, one of the conclusions was the current wastewater treatment plant expansion is intended only for development already approved by Washoe County, thus it is not expected to promote further growth in Cold Springs. The original proposal by Stonegate was to be, I believe was 187,000 gallons of sewage per day. Well, when they expanded the proposal to include the piece of land just directly east of the White Lake Playa, which is also part of the parcel they purchased, the amount of effluent waste generated per day jumped to 4.2 million gallons per day. The current treatment center there is able to treat 1.2 gallons per day. So the 4.2 million is 3.5 times the maximum amount that this water treatment there is able to handle. Now, in case you're wondering what 4.2 million gallons of sewage a day looks like, the White Lake Playa holds 2,500 acre feet. So 4.2 million gallons of sewage a day would be the equivalent of filling the playa every 6 months with sewage. I also question what is going on because they projected in 2017 that the current wastewater treatment would have reached within 15 feet of the top of the aquifer under the playa. we have 5 feet of evaporation per year. What happens when the aquifer gets full under the playa is it percolates up and then is lost to evaporation. We're full. We just had a very dry, hot summer. In theory, the playa should be empty right now, but I believe what's going on is the wastewater is going into the aquifer over and above the 15-foot barrier that they thought would happen at this point in time. And so I'm wondering, where are the studies to determine where is the level of the water in the aquifer?
Thank you, Ms. Edmondson.
Thank you.
Next, I have Ms. Kathleen Shoup, followed by Ms. Denise Ross.
Hello, I'm Kathleen Shoup, and I'm fortunate enough to have a home that's just to the east of the Wild Creek Golf Course, and I do love that open space very much. It needs to stay a public golf course or an open space. As a golf course, it supplies affordable golfing for our seniors and our regular folks that cannot afford to belong to one of the country clubs. It's close enough to the homes so that the people can actually get there in a timely fashion and not have to drive for quite a distance. It's a habitat for a lot of animals. There are so many really wonderful little animals scurrying around on there. I especially like the badgers. They're really cute. They like to tumble and roll in the grasses. The school district never did any due diligence when they looked at that property. They didn't check out any of the traffic problems or the flooding, which has been mentioned so many times over and over. When I looked at the 2,500 students that are projected and I thought about the parking, I came up with 15 acres of parking. And that's just for the students alone. That's not the teachers and staff to support the school's functions. Now, that's a lot of asphalt to cover the green space. And as was mentioned before, the lawns can reabsorb water, and that 15 acres of parking will not absorb the water that comes down out of Sun Valley. I thank you all for listening to me. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Shoup. Next, I have Ms. Denise Ross, followed by Ms. Cindy McCavitt Perkins.
And Ms. Ross provided me with a folder of documentation. There's only one copy. If you'd like, I can pass it
Just have
around,
it
or I'll
entered-
just put it
entered
on the
into
record.
Please.
Thank you.
Denise Ross, Lemon Valley Flood Relief and Assistance. I'd like to say thank you to all of you here today representing the various entities of our local government. This is very important. If you haven't seen it, each of you should seriously watch the movie An Inconvenient Truth, Truth to Power, by our 45th President, Al Gore. Right now, you can get it from Charter on demand. It's about global warming and its shocking effects, like those effects that caused us to gasp at the shock of our neighbors in Napa Valley and the horrific fires that we could never imagine could or would happen, like effects that caused the unimaginable flooding in our local areas this past year. Please try to follow this with me. From the Bureau of Reclamation, an acre-foot supplies enough water for a family of 4 for 1 year, which equals 8,000 homes having 4 members. From Vidler Water, the controlling interest in the ranch property which produced the Fish Springs Ranch water deal states the approximate 8,000 acre-feet of groundwater is enough water to support at least 16,000 new residential homes in the Reno market. From the Reno Gazette-Journal, April 29, 2015, in an article written, "Pipeline would provide new water for the North Valleys." This article goes on to say how valuable the water is at that time, since the drought, then in its 4th year, could continue longer and would provide an extra 8,000 feet of drought backup. Now, back to a time in June 2007, Ecologic Engineering Report. Stormwater management and flood control are also very important considerations that affect water and wastewater issues in the Stead and Lemon Valley TMSA. Geographically, the areas lie within a closed basin. Presently, stormwater runoff is routed to Swan Lake and Silver Lake. Since there is very little percolation from these playa lakes, the water persists for several months or seasons until it evaporates. Recent planning work indicates that more severe flooding may occur. Furthermore, additional runoff resulting from development in the Swan Lake watershed will need to be mitigated to prevent an increase in flood elevation. Now, please consider that Fish Springs Pipeline will be supplying housing areas, warehouses, and already converted homes. Consider effects from global warming and Nevada's history of drought and flash flooding. Consider the engineering reports warning of stormwater and wastewater issues that result in additional runoff from the development. Ask yourself, where is this 8,000 acre-feet of water being pumped in from Fish Springs that may one day go dry going to end up? Swan Lake and Silver Lake. You are all on record as being in attendance for this wake-up call. I'm giving the reports to the clerk for your review. Thank you.
Next, we have Miss Cindy McCavitt Perkins, and followed by Mr. Danny Turkanian.
Good morning, Cindy McCavitt Perkins, with continuation for Denise Ross. We are not just talking about the water that is already there. We are not just talking about the effluent water from the sewage treatment. We are not just talking about that extraordinary amount of rain and snow that we get. And we are not just talking about thousands of new homes and warehouses that will cover our ground and earth here in Lemon Valley and North Valleys. But it is all of this combined that will very likely have irreversible and unmanageable, unattended consequences. On the other end of the spectrum, what if the global warming causes even more drought? It is inevitable. What will you do with 8,000 to 16,000 new homes and warehouses when Fish Springs runs dry, just as Owens Valley did near Los Angeles? What are you going to say that explains how you justify building when you know all of the infrastructure to support this is just not there? You do not control the water, drought, and flooding. Just drive down Lemon Drive and look with your own eyes at the collapsed systems. HESCO barriers, uncontrolled flooding, not enough funds to clean the ditches, homes still abandoned from the flooding, and you will not even know who is responsible for maintaining it all, Washoe County or the city of Reno. You can't just close your eyes to it and keep building. You may think the HESCO barriers are fixing the problems. They are not a fix. You can't just open and close Lemon Drive to the weather. You can't continue to run temporary pumps forever. Things out there have collapsed. You cannot deny what your eye sees when you drive down Lemon Drive. Again, you are on record as being attendants of this wake-up call. And I would just like to say for myself, I'm concerned with all the development being planned that the Reno Air Races, they bring in $24 million on their event. What's going to happen with all the new homes out there, and then the threat of, being a dangerous situation of the air races flying over homes? Are they going to close the air races? Are they going to stop it? And just my thought. Thank you very much.
Next, Mr. Danny Tarkanian, followed by Mr. Sam Dene.
Mr. Chairman, Madam Mayor, fellow councilmen and commissioners, my name is Danny Tarkanian, and I'm running for the United States Senate. I have heard so much how well you three organizations work together, and as I think we would all agree, Washington, D.C. could sure learn a little bit about working better together. So I thought I'd come by today and watch and see how you get this thing done. My father always said the best comments are the shortest comments, so I'm going to yield the rest of my time. Good morning and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Tarkanian. Next, Mr. Sam Dene.
Oops, excuse me. Sam DNA Dene, the heart and soul, the body and mind of Reno government. We had a man running for United States Senate. I should be the United States Senator. I know more than all these people added together. And a nice smiley face over there. And I'm the most humble person in this community because if people knew what I have to go through and still maintain my little bit of sanity I still have, they would probably go crazy. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate. I spent many years flying fighters and bombers, defending our nation. I've been to more city council meetings and county commission meetings than all of you wonderful people added together, multiplied by 10. I'm responsible for 90. Oh, and by the way, I really appreciate when we have the sheriff sending a deputy down here every day, and the police chief, a deputy here to protect Sam against nefarious things that might be happening back there. Thank you very much, sir. At any rate, nice smiley face there too. Hey, by the way, I'm responsible for 92% of the good things about Reno, starting with saving Burning Man when they wanted to shut it down, all the way to saving the Air National Guard, which they wanted to get rid of it by bringing fighter planes in. The Air Guard would no longer be here. I said get cargo planes, they got cargo planes, and we have a great Air Guard going on now. All the way up to this Tesla effect, but now I'm regretting that I was a driving force that helped bring Tesla here. It's not really a good thing because the wrong people are paying for the problems. The people, why aren't you having meetings with those people over in Story County and ordering them to pay for all of these schools and things? Build the schools over there. This is wacko. And people said, Sam, why don't you try to be nice? And I said, wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if we had bureaucrats who respected the citizens? Wouldn't it be nice if we had an honest voting system? Wouldn't it really be nice if we had an honest media mouse wacko, instead of the wacko freaks that we have destroying our community? The media, the Reno Gazette, they hate Reno. And as far as this, they call it the Wild Creek High School, I'm saying it's the billionaire's boondoggle. It's going to, you pay that much money for that, the rest of the money is going to be spent. We do have an infinite tax coming in here, but it's going to be billions of dollars if you waste it the way you're going to waste it on this Wild Creek boondoggle. By the way, I'm almost always right, and I'm betting, just to make these folks feel good back here, safe, this $100 bill, I'm betting this $100 bill that you guys are going to have the honesty, the courage, the integrity to do the right thing and vote it down, get it out of there, throw it somewhere else. Anybody want to take me up on that bet? I'm betting that these people will do the honest thing. Boy, that is a stretch, though.
Thank you, Mr.
Right,
Dene.
thank you over there. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms.
Thank
Tracy
you.
Hall.
And you're welcome over there.
I want your bet, Sam. I'll take your bet.
Followed by Mr. Mike Brierly.
Hi, Tracy Hall for the record. I'm sure several of you recognize me by now. I haven't had the privilege to talk to City of Sparks or the Water Authority, but I say that every time I'm up here, was a resident of Lemon Valley. My 10 acres still, a lot of water on it. Can't move home, but yet I was called by Washoe County Social Services last week telling me they have good news and bad news. I said, okay, just give me it. I don't want to meet with you. Just tell me what's going on. They said, your housing is no longer going to be paid for, but I can't go home. But we had good news. You can apply for HUD. How's that good news to me and to my husband? My husband works so hard to provide for my family to live a comfortable lifestyle. Yeah, we don't live in a rich neighborhood, but where we lived was ours. We were comfortable, and it was ours. It was our home, our four walls. Still can't go home to our four walls. Husband's still working as hard as he was 8 months ago. We've never asked for handouts from the county, the state, the city. So why should we have to now when the county and the city are the reason we're homeless? I ask you that. It's not fair. Why should we apply for HUD just to pay, probably kicked again while we're down? You guys don't want to pay for our housing. Why, I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. You guys talk about on the news that you're there for the duration, for the community out there, but yet you keep taking back what little help you've done. Why can you put on the news that you're still there to help us, and you're not? That's a lie. Those HESCO barriers, sure, they help a little bit, but for those of us on Pompey, they've destroyed our lives. Those HESCO barriers were put up and sacrificed those homes on Pompey to save others. But those homes on Pompey are still vacant because we can't move back home to them. A couple of weeks ago, I heard veteran and homeless shouldn't be in the same sentence. You got a homeless veteran out there because of the flood, and he's homeless. Shame on you. He shouldn't be, just as we shouldn't be. We're part of the community just like everybody else, and we deserve a home back. And now we're being told, as of January 1st, no longer our temporary housing will be available unless we qualify for HUD. Then we have to pay more money out of our pockets. That it shouldn't be that way. Thank you.
Next, I have Mr. Mike Brierly, followed by Mr. Jeff Church.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and those from City of Sparks and City of Reno. I'm here to talk about Wild Creek, but I have to start off by yesterday I took a drive. I went up to Old North Gate. I went around the whole area. There's a number of beautiful homes around North Gate. And I finally got around to the road that used to go up to the clubhouse. There's a big lot gate there with a sign on it that says golf course closed. Then I looked down in the hole where North Gate used to be quite beautiful to look at, the green space and the open space. Now it's really a fire hazard, particularly after last year had all this moisture. There's weeds and grass that are that high down there. There's no perimeter protection of those homes. Seems like the fire department will take a look at this. That's just what I see possibly happen at Wild Creek, particularly if the school takes part of it and the rest is left vacant. If that happens, there's some severance damage that everyone has to look at. I would like to have attention made to NRS 244.2815. This is a sale, lease, or disposal of real property of county for redevelopment or economic development requirements. A board of county commissions may sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of real property for the purposes of redevelopment or economic development without first offering the real property to the public and for less than fair market value of the real property. I'm sure you all have looked at this. Before a board of county commissioners may sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of real property pursuant to this section, the board must, except or otherwise provided in subsection 3, obtain an appraisal of the real property pursuant to NRS 244.2795 and adopt a resolution finding that in its best interest for the public to sell, lease, or otherwise dispose of this property. The key here is best interest for the public. And if there is a movement towards this, and you have to have a resolution finding that it is in the best interest of the public to sell, I hope you have public meetings, public hearings, and have more reasons than it's a cost to the RSCVA, or where they're losing $300,000 a year for the next 3 years. That's the only reason I can see RSCVA wanting to get rid of the golf course. You need to look to a private developer and lease this property to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brierly. Next, I have Mr. Jeff Church, followed by Miss Darla Lee.
And Mr. Church provided me with a handout which I'll distribute to the board.
Thank you.
Good morning, folks. Good to see you all. I am Jeff Church. I run a website, renotaxrevolt.com. That's renotaxrevolt.com. In your handout, I just selected 5 issues that are tax-related that I wanted to talk about if I have time in my 3 minutes. And I am a watchdog, not over government, but over the government dysfunction and misspending. And I have some good news. When you wake up in the morning and you read the paper, there's great news. The heat is off you folks because Washoe County School District is so dysfunctional that the Reno Gazette has finally picked up on it. And as they quoted, one of the quotes was that they are dishonest. Building costs sky high, dysfunction, graduation rates, lies about that. Yeah, the graduation rates are up, but they're not testing. And 90% of the students fail the ACT in order to get into college. So who cares if you give the diplomas out like candy if the 90% can't even go to junior college? Building costs. When they wanted to put it on the ballot, they gave us one figure. When WC1 made the ballot, the figure went up. Now, the figure went up again 50 to 300% for building schools. And some of you were on those committees. I mean, I'm not going to mention the individual by name, but is he a liar or is he just so grossly incompetent that he has got those figures so screwed up? I want to move on to sales tax. Because of WC1, I believe, sales tax in Washoe County is sluggish, 5.3% year to date. The other nearby counties are booming. Auto sales, sluggish, actually down 8% in April in Washoe County and double-digit rates up in Lyon and Carson City. AB 375 flood tax. That's the next issue. Coming soon to a ballot by you. I question the legality of a bill that grants power to a biased, unelected committee to determine what taxes or fees we pay or what's going to be on the ballot. I want to make this clear. Of the $400 million that they seek for flood control, not one penny would go to those folks in North County. It is entirely Truckee River, and we already pay a sales tax for that. And I only have 45 seconds left, but I'm a veteran. I'm a VFW Life member. This take a stand stuff that's going on nationwide is out of control. We have, and I was proud to see not one person took a knee during the pledge. Thank you, folks. We're not going to stand for this, and we have local businesses that advertise with the Reno Aces and the other sports things. As leaders in the community, I'm asking you to reach out to the local teams and encourage them not to let their players take a knee and disrespect the flag, veterans, dedicated law enforcement officers, and the ideals of this country. Because we're going to protest and they're going to lose business. And you don't want to lose business because that's tax revenue, and we're already sluggish. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Church. Next, Ms. Darla Lee, followed by Mr. Max Haynes.
Good morning. My name is Darla Lee, for the record. I'm happy to address each of you at this concurrent meeting about the Wild Creek High School proposal, because it was at such a meeting last May that the intention to build was voted on and approved. Over the last 6 months, you have heard concerned citizens address this issue, and perhaps you were tired of seeing us. Sadly, only a small number of us can attend meetings held during normal work hours, so you see the same faces, but rest assured, we represent thousands who share our concerns. That being said, I will not reiterate what you have already heard many times about all the negatives involved in building of a new high school at the Wild Creek Golf Course, and we are all waiting to find out the results of the impact studies, which are due at the end of this month. However, according to personal conversations with the female members of the Washoe County School Board, I have to say the men never called me back. I have no doubt that if the studies indicate approval of the site, it will be bought and the school built, no matter what the cost overruns might eventually be for this project. So it seems to me that groups represented here, as well as the RSCVA, that a number of you are also members of, has the opportunity to decide as to whether to offer this property to the school board or to offer it to a private management group to continue its operation as a golf course. The first option will undoubtedly lead to negative impacts on the surrounding community and businesses, as well as a loss of green space, animal habitat, and affordable golfing. The second option, if proper management is obtained, and especially if the remaining water debt bond could be paid off, then revenue could be added to Washoe County, as is currently the case in Sierra Sage. On the one hand, as a high school for which a better location could surely be found, and the spending of tax dollars that would reflect a true concern by the school board for the taxpayer, and on the other hand, is a retaining a potentially profitable asset which still benefits students via the First Tee program, but also the general public as well. You are all elected public servants, and I assume that you are in your position because you want to serve all the citizens of Washoe County, hopefully not just those in your own district, and to the best of your ability. Please do not think that this is a small matter that will soon be forgotten before the next election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next, Mr. Max Haynes, followed by Mr. Charles McCubbins.
Good morning, council members, commissioners, and staffs from the city of Reno and Sparks and the county. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm going to speak a little bit about housing. My name is Max Haynes. Before I get into my comments, I'd just like to say there's three kinds of people in the world: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wondered what happened. I'm a little concerned that with the housing issues we face in the region, we're going to be asking, well, what happened? I live in the county, I live in the city. I have employees that are getting to the point where housing is a crisis, rents are skyrocketing, and as you guys probably know, the key to affordable housing is really supply. And the key to supply is moving projects along that make sense without jeopardizing planning issues and public safety. I work with a company called Alpen Mortgage. We are currently financing over 300 homes for small and medium-sized builders. It's very difficult for them to get financing, and delays cost them large amounts of money and also make the capital markets here questionable. Can we get this project done on time, on budget? These are the guys that can quickly make projects move along. Today, you guys are going to address some water project issues and discussions of better coordination between Tumwa, County Health, and NDP. There's clearly an issue of delay. We have the data in our projects to show that it's delaying projects between 2 and 6 months minimal by not better coordinating different agencies. I realize there's health and safety issues. I also realize that as leaders, we can move those along and truly define what's a health issue and what's a planning issue and what's a territorial issue. So I encourage you guys today to really take that discussion seriously and really see if we can demand action, limit bureaucracy, and without jeopardizing any safety. And I think this can be done. And I'll just tell you that never confuse movement with action. We're seeing a lot of movement. I don't believe we're seeing the action that's necessary to meet the shortages we're going to see in housing. This is something that all bodies need to get together and demand leadership all the way from the state, the governor's office. The governor has asked his staff to move things along. I serve on a housing task force with the mayor, and she's asked staff to move things along. I'd also ask the county staff to do the same thing and really lead the staffs to get rid of any bureaucracies that don't make sense. That's timelines, that's any territorial issues of who's responsible for what. This can be done, and I look to you guys to do that. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. Next, we have Mr. Charles McCubbins, followed by Ms. Donna Robinson.
My name is Charles McCubbins, and I thank you for the opportunity to come before you. If you'll excuse me, I want to read this I usually don't use notes, but today I feel obligated to. Years ago, the Washoe County Board of Commissioners adopted a master plan. And that was one that called for the preservation of green spaces in the county, knowing that they saw expanded growth and expected growth. The Washoe County School District looked 10 years into the future and said they need 7 new schools. We're asking you, this board of commissioners, to do the same thing. Look 10 years into the future and see if you see enough golf and recreational and green spaces to accommodate the future growth of this county. The truth is, in 10 years, you'll be looking back and you're going to be trying to find a place to build new golf courses and find new green spaces. The Washoe County School District says that they will, well, it was not, I'm losing my train of thought, and I apologize so much. We want you, the NRS says that we want to preserve green spaces and recreational uses for this county. You need, and it was to preserve the beautiful property and the recreation use of its citizens, and doing just that. You'll not find another 212 acres more beautiful than this place is for the people that drive by and see it every day. And for those of us that want affordable golf, there's 27 holes there. You can't replace that 27 holes, no matter what you do. And in the next 10 years, you'll be looking back and you'll say, where are we going to expand? Who's going to develop this area? Where are we going to do it? You have the opportunity right now to go ahead and preserve this property, keep it the way it is. On December 12th, you have a big decision to make. And you have time to make and change your thoughts so that you can direct the school district to find a suitable location in Sun Valley where that school is needed. It's not needed here. It's needed in Sun Valley. That's where the expected growth is going to be. There's time for you to make that decision. If you've not made up your mind, or if you're teetering, think about the people that are going to be coming here. And 10 years in advance, you can do the right thing. And we call upon you to save Wild Creek, preserve it, and thank you for your time. Hopefully you have great judgment in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCubbins. Next, I have Ms. Donna Robinson.
Good morning. The commissioners know who I am. I'm happy to speak in front of representatives from the city of Reno and Sparks. My name is Donna Robinson. For the record, I am a resident of Lemon Valley. I am a veteran, and I am currently and still out of my home in Lemon Valley due to the flooding. I had no intention of speaking today. However, listening to other public comments, I have heard some things that have angered me. One of the things I want to say is thank you for the help that you have given us, Washoe County. I am lucky enough to be in housing provided by the county and the state. However, I had to go out and find a loan to fix my home. I had to take out $60,000 to fix my home. Guess what my insurance paid me? Nothing to date, maybe $500 in the future. Insurance is not worth, flood insurance is not worth the paper it's written on, okay? I have to worry every day, especially with this winter. We're hearing it's going to be one of the worst ones we've had. We're going to get more water. Am I wasting my money by putting it back in my home? I am a veteran. I am also a retired city employee. I gave 26 years of my life protecting the city of Reno and the residents of that city. And I am really disturbed at the fact that all the work that I am putting back in my home may be worthless. I want to live in my home. I've been there for 25 years. I have blood, sweat, and tears on my property. I have horses. I have dogs. My son was raised there. and I may lose my home again if the flooding happens again. I need something done. The residents out there need something done. Not in the future, not let's wait and see what's going to happen. We need something done now. Put up a barrier, put up a pump house, do something. Show the residents out there you care. We put you in office, Commissioner. We need help. We are tired and we are stressed. And my health has been the shittiest it's ever been this past year. We need the cities and the county to find real solutions to the flooding issues, not let's wait and see. Well, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that. Well, no, we're gonna wait. We're gonna start talking about it 9 months after the fact. I have been out of my house since March. What would you do if you were out of your house for the last several months? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Okay, seeing no further public comment this morning, what I'll do is I'll bring it back to the board at this time. This time we are on to agenda number 5. So we're at the approval of the agenda this morning. I want to make a quick note on the county commission's agenda on page 2. There was an incorrect date at the very top, dated February 6th. It's not the February 6th. It is currently for, obviously, November 6th, 2017. So that was a typo on our behalf. But other than that, looking for approval from the county commission.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Burkbigler. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. Now you get approval of the agenda from the City of Reno. I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Looking to accept the agenda item for the City of Sparks?
So moved.
We have a motion. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Great. All right, at this time, we are on to our presentation.
Truckee Meadows Water
Authority, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. Commissioner Hartung.
Members of the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, I need a motion or any changes to the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Jordan, second by Councilman Dewar. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, we are on to our presentation this morning, and there's a presentation, discussion, and possible action on the status of the review and approval of water projects by the Truckee Meadows Water Authority, Washoe County Health District, and the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection. We have with us this morning members from each of these entities. One of the reasons this issue was brought forth by to this concurrent meeting to be held in this is to have an open discussion that has been brewing against in most of in the 4 entities over the last 6 or 7 months, if maybe longer. This morning is a discussion to see where we are with things and have the ability for everybody to brief the 4 entities on status that is being made and where we're at with things and how we look to move forward. So at this time, what I'd like to do is invite Mr. Greg Lovato from the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection to lead us this morning.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Lucy. Again, my name is Greg Lovato. I'm the administrator of the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. With me today, I have Washington County Health District Officer Kevin Dick and also Tumwa General Manager Mark Foray. We have a 4-part presentation for you today. I'm going to give a bit of background on Nevada drinking water law and regulation. Kevin and Mark will then follow up with discussion about recent progress we've been making on approving water projects, and then I'm going to follow up with some discussion about longer-term fixes. And so just to start off, although the focus of the review has been on the review and approval of water projects, individual water projects, these individual projects are taking place within the context of federal and state laws and regulations where both the state and Washoe County Health District have assigned roles. The Tumwa water collection, treatment, and distribution system is regulated as a public water system under both federal, state laws and regulations. Those public water system regulations apply to very small systems such as mobile home parks and at mining facilities throughout the state, as well as large municipal systems such as Tumwa's. Tumwa's system is issued a permit as a public water system by the state of Nevada. The system is subject to both federal Safe Drinking Water Act and Nevada Public Water System Law. Since the late 1970s, first the Nevada State Health Division, and then starting in 2005, the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection have a specific role in meeting requirements to maintain what's called primacy enforcement responsibility under the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act. This allows permitting and enforcement to be handled more efficiently at the state and local rather than at the federal level. As part of our delegation from the US EPA, NDEP is required to assure that design and construction of substantially modified public water system facilities are capable of compliance with state regulations. The term substantially modified is not specifically defined in the Safe Drinking Water Act. The way that NDEP interprets that term is both magnitude and potential for public health impact. That's how we interpret the term substantial. Additionally, the Washoe County Health District is assigned a role by state laws and regulations to review and approve initial construction and any renovation, modification, or expansion of the water system. State law requires Washoe County Health District approval of substantial addition and alterations. But again, the term substantial is not further defined in the statutes. NDEP's role in water projects is to provide technical assistance and at times direction to Washoe County Health District to ensure that oversight and regulatory determinations comply with state regulations and federal delegation requirements. State regulations originally enacted in 1997, that was the last time they were substantially revised, by the Health Division are very specific and require Washoe County Health District approval of all water projects regardless of size, unless a waiver is granted for main expansions of less than 500 feet or less. So just a couple of takeaways from this background before I turn it over to Kevin. The Safe Drinking Water Act delegation requires NDEP to assure compliance with state regulations. Both the state and Washoe County Health District have a role in approval of water projects under federal and state laws. The state regulations enacted in '97 are very specific and require approval of all water projects. But at the same time, we will be discussing and clarifying what is under the umbrella of a water project, keeping in mind the potential for both public health impacts as well as the size of the modification. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin to talk about some of the recent developments.
Thank you. Good morning, Kevin Dick, District Health Officer for the Washoe County Health District. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Mr. Lovato just explained to you that the Nevada Administrative Code requirements have been around since 1997. So I want to take a few minutes to explain then why we had these problems that happened earlier this year. The state of Nevada became aware that the review process that we had at the Health District for water projects was not in conformance with the NAC requirements. And so we received direction from NDEP and EPA to work to modify our review process to do a better job of ensuring that the NAC requirements were being met. Also, since January of 2016, we had the Tumwa being expanded to consolidate under them Washoe County Water Resources and the South Truckee Meadows General Improvement District. So we had several different components of a water system that were now coming under Tumwa and also then subject to Tumwa's own design standards for their construction. We received a waiver request from Tumwa to expand the waiver that they had for the 500 linear feet of main to that new service area. Because of the high number of plans that we were getting through Tumwa that required revisions, because of, and I attribute this to our changes in our application of NAC to conform better with the regulations, but also now that these plans were supposed to include all of the TUMWA design standards. Because of that high rate of revisions that we were requiring, we did not grant that waiver and pulled the waiver from TUMWA at that time. As you know, we were also experiencing during this time period a large uptick in economic development activity with more plan submittals coming in than we'd seen over the previous few years. The Health District did not do a good job in communicating the changes that were occurring on the plan review process to the development community. And as a result, the way that people became aware that we were changing what we were doing with our plan review was because they had a plan that was submitted, that was in process, and now they were getting a comment back on it that it needed to be corrected because of the NAC requirements. This caused a disruption in the process of the review for these plans and delays. And we heard about this from concerns that were expressed from developers and engineers and others. We had several meetings this spring to hear those concerns, some of them quite heated in the discussions. And from that, we began working together at the director level between the Health District, NDEP, and TUMWA to address these issues. I'd like to draw your attention to attachment 2 in the, attachment 3 in the handout, the TUMWA Washoe County Health District Water Project review periods. And this table illustrates the situation that we had during fiscal year 17 with the review periods for water projects and the situation that we have today where we have much decreased times. To explain to you how the process works for these water projects that are coming through TUMWA, TUMWA ultimately is accepting the water distribution system that's constructed as development activity occurs. And so TUMWA, one, needs to ensure that they have the available water rights to provide that water service. They need to assess that they have adequate capacity to provide that service. And that capacity determination can affect what the engineering design is as far as the sizing of the pipes that are used to provide that distribution. So TUMWA has the first role of review in working on a water project submittal to ensure that it meets their standards and that they'll be able to accept and operate that system once it comes through. The TUMWA review times are shown there under commercial service, main extension, and subdivisions. And you can see that during FY17 for a subdivision that ran up to 26 days. I'm actually on the table. Okay, good. Once TUMWA then completes their review and provides comments for revisions, those go back to the design engineering firm, and they then revise the plans based on the comments that they receive from TUMWA. And you can see that during FY17, those revision periods from those comments going out back to the engineer, to the plans being revised, coming through TUMWA back to the Health District, range from 41 to 76 days. So then the plans come to the Health District for our review. And the time frame during 17 was 18 days for the Health District review of on average for water projects, and then 20 days for if we had comments for the design engineers to provide those revisions back to the Health District. If you look at FY18, you can see that these periods have been reduced from 26 to 22 days for TUMWA for a subdivision, from 76 days to 18 days for the design engineer revisions, from 18 days to 12 days for the Health District review, and from 20 days to 12 days for the engineering design review. And These changes, I think, result not only from some of the work that we've done to be able to expedite the plan review and clarify some issues, but also from the communication and a better understanding from the engineering design community of the NAC requirements and the way the plans need to be put together for approval through our process. Some of the things that we addressed were to expedite project review was eliminating review of irrigation, less than 2-inch diameter distribution system. We clarified requirements for fire hydrants and how those need to be addressed. We, to expedite review, are accepting and reviewing plans that don't have the TUMWA easements noted on them, with TUMWA providing that information back to us further into the process. And we've streamlined approval for single service projects. In working with NDEP, the Health District has been authorized for additional decision-making capability in our review process. And we also have improved the comments that we're providing on plans to provide specific review comments with examples. We've worked much more closely between TUMWA and the Health District staff on the review, which has improved the communication, I think has assisted us in having plans now coming through TUMWA's process that are more readily able for us to approve and move through the process. And we also, through the meetings at the director level, have set up a management review for issue resolution. So if we have situations where TUMWA and the Health District are looking at the regulations differently and we have a conflict, we immediately elevate those and work on those at the director level to resolve those. I wanted to also call your attention to the attachment to the submittal flow, because I explained to you how the review process works, in which first the developer needs to work with TUMWA to design a system that TUMWA can then take over operation of. So you've got the TUMWA design review, sequential then with the Health District review. And what we've found is that we have a number of projects where the civil plans are put together and the developer then goes to one of the jurisdictions and submits those plans for a building permit at the building counter, and the clock starts ticking for review of those plans. But they may not have already begun work with TUMWA, and so when that civil plans come through the building department and are provided to the Health District, we don't have a water project that we can review that goes along with those plans. So we basically are stuck waiting until the project goes through the TUMWA process and the plans are suitable for TUMWA to then submit to the Health District. And so that's the current submittal flow process that you see, where there's a problem with a critical path there as far as people not working with TUMWA earlier in the process to get that review going on these projects. And so we've been trying to communicate as well to the development community the page 2 view of the ideal submittal flow, where in the development process, they're working with TUMWA earlier in the process so that they can initiate that work that needs to occur with TUMWA, get those plans reviewed through TUMWA so that as they're going and applying for building permits, they're further into the project and we can have a water project that we can review and move things along. I also mentioned that we had pulled the TUMWA waiver because of issues that we were having with plans that needed revisions coming from TUMWA. And we're currently talking with TUMWA and with NDEP about providing that waiver back. I think we've seen a great improvement in the plans and what we're able to review to. And I think we've improved the disconnect that I believe was going on between our two agencies by the communication that we've done in trying to work through these issues and resolve the problems. So we're working to move that further into the further along in the process and get that waiver reinstated. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mark Forey to provide his assessment of where we're at Tumwa's perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Dick. Mr. Forey.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to be here today. Mark Forey for the record with Tumwa.
Good boy.
2017, the start of it was a tough year for a tough start of the year in terms of getting water projects approved. There's no question about that. But when these issues arose, we at the director level did get together. We had regular meetings. We've had regular meetings ever since, every week or two, or maybe several times a week in some cases, to try to move this process in a positive direction, to streamline the process, to recognize conflicts early and resolve them early. And so that communication has been very helpful. The improvements that Kevin has mentioned have resulted in some lesser, shorter turnaround times for review of all the parties on all the parties' behalf. And we've also had our staffs meeting on a regular basis too, every week or two. So this improvement in communication has helped the process a great deal. We've seen that again in those review times that have been coming down, which is good. But there are more things to do. We're very anxious at Tumwa to get that waiver back, that 500-foot waiver back. That will really streamline some of the smaller projects that can be as simple as just adding a fire hydrant, for instance, which with that waiver would not have to go to the health department for their review. There are more things to be done. We do agree between all of us at the director level that changes to the NAC really need to be done. They're 20 years old. They've never been modified. Things have changed in 20 years. And we believe that there can be changes made to clarify those regulations, to remove ambiguities, to make it more flexible for water system design, which we all appreciate flexibility in our lives. We'd like to have that in water system design as well. And so we all recognize that NDEP is willing to go forward with that process. One of the bigger things about that process is we would like to have considered more autonomy for these large systems that have all these resources. We have dozens of professional engineers. We have dozens of grade 4 certified operators like Las Vegas Valley Water District has, like the city of Henderson has, for instance. We would like to see that, we would like to have more autonomy with those large water systems, to have more responsibility to administer those NAC regs in and of ourselves. And so that is something I'm very much looking forward to. Tumwa will provide all the resources we need to move those NAC changes along as quickly and as efficiently as we can. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Lovato to talk more about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forey. Mr. Lovato.
So thank you again. For the record, Greg Lovato with NDEP. So I'm going to draw your attention to attachment 4, which summarizes what I'd called some of the longer-term fixes to the existing system we're working within. I think you heard from both Kevin and Mark that within the existing system of the Nevada Administrative Code, which was passed in '97, it hasn't changed much. Hewing to the specifics of that code does place a burden on both the design community and the regulators. And so when there's any ambiguity, even with changing conditions, or when you're trying to build in an old area or a new situation that you haven't dealt with before, that's where you have cause for confusion and cause for delay. I think you've seen that over the past several months, within that existing system, we're doing what we can and will continue to improve our coordination to remove delay. and we know every day counts. We're committed at the state to only taking the time needed and having a program in place that's necessary to assure public health protection while moving projects along. So we have heard just among the past several months, we've heard there's several areas in the Nevada Administrative Code that require clarification, that require updating. And so I list some of those up here. Mark touched on the scope of the waiver for systems with engineering review programs. That's an extremely important component. What I think from the regulator standpoint, when we look at what a system should be capable of in terms of its own internal project review and approval, we're not only looking for resources, we're also looking for programs and documentation and audit that can be verified. And so I don't know if it's necessary from NDEP standpoint to have every single water project review as we're doing now, but there needs to be some form of review so that we can faithfully discharge our responsibilities under public water system law and the Safe Drinking Water Act. Some of the areas Kevin touched on, when you're getting into older areas of town, but you're putting in new service, some of these crossing requirements, mitigation requirements, separation distances can get complicated. And allowing a system where, subject to engineering review, mitigation options are available more readily. That's something that we're open to looking at and clarifying. Another area of the current regulations that has resulted in some confusion is adoption by reference of several guidances and water standards back in the late 90s that some of them, such as American Water Works Association, are large and they undergo revision often, so it's impossible to adopt them all the time into the regs. But others may have been outdated in the past 20 years, and so we need to take a hard look at those and make sure that we're not adopting regulations by reference that aren't entirely applicable or necessary to what projects we're going through today. There could be other suggestions for revisions. We have proposed a process for revision. The process for revision, if you look at that timeline I set out there, the period from, let's just say, May through October is probably the least flexible part of that review and that revision process. We're required to go through Legislative Council Bureau, required to do public workshops, required to appear before the State Environmental Commission, and required to do Legislative Commission review. The part from November through April, where NDEP is intending to do outreach with affected parties and convene work groups, that can be flexible. That can be shortened. It's all going to depend on the range of comments we receive from everyone in the community and how big the changes we're proposing to make are. We'll be required to go through a process to receive that input at the beginning and then do a public workshop after the regulations are drafted. So this is our current anticipated schedule. It could change subject to the substance of the changes we're planning to make. So with that, I just want to reinforce the state's commitment to working with the design community and with TUM1 Washoe County Health District, and we'd be happy to take questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lovato. All right. At this time, we're going to bring it back to the board, and we'll have members discuss at this time. So right out the gate, I have Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as the representative of TUMWA, I'll sort of lead some of these conversations, and I'm going to kind of jump around, if I may, Mr. Lovato, and I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out today. Mr. Forey, can you come up for just a moment? Talk to me briefly about the number of violations that TUMWA has had in, let's just say, the last 5 years.
Mark Forey, for the record, we've not had any violations of water quality standards in
the last 5 years.
In 16 years.
In 16 years.
Yes,
so
since TUMWA was formed.
Not 10. It's since day one. We've had no
Correct.
violations. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. That's my basic question for you. Thank you, Mr. Dick. On your attachment 3, you talk about days. Define days for me. Are those calendar days or those working days?
Yeah, I should have identified. Those are calendar days.
Those are calendar days. Yes. Okay, good. Not working days. Okay, that's I'll sort of hold right there, and my understanding is that we're close to having an agreement with the waiver to be reinstated, correct?
That's correct. We've discussed conceptually what that would look like, and we just need to get something drafted, have staff sit down and review it.
And when was the waiver pulled?
Was pulled in early March.
Okay, of this year?
Yes.
Okay.
And we had, the last year I had data on that was 2015.
Okay.
And that was 13 water projects that year that proceeded under the waiver.
Was it because of violations, or was it more of something that physically changed, or an interpretation?
So the reason that we pulled it was because we had a high percentage of plans that were coming through TUMWA that we had to submit comments for revisions on. And my take on what may have been occurring with that was that was during a period when we were coming into conformance with NAC requirements in our plan review, so things that might have gotten through before were getting held up with comments. That was also when we had the expansion areas now under TUMWA's jurisdiction. So we had plans coming through in those areas that previously didn't need to be designed to TUMWA design standards that now were subject to those standards.
Okay, so prior to, we didn't have the feel that there were violations, but moving forward, and I'm assuming that there was probably a change in staff. Is that, or was it the same staff all along that just felt like they had been allowing things to slip?
We had a staff engineer that was on board for some time before that, but was working to improve that review process.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Lovato, I'm a little unclear on this, and this is a difficult part for me representing TUMWA today as the vice chair. It's my understanding that water project submittals at the health department are not required in southern Nevada for subdivisions, hydrants, installations, commercial and industrial services. Pretty much the type of projects we're talking about here. Why the onerous and selective regulations on northern Nevada and not on southern Nevada? If NDEP is going to say that there are violations, why not statewide? I'm a little vexed, sir.
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. So my understanding is that in 1990, the Las Vegas Valley Water District was granted a waiver from the Nevada State Health Division. And that carries through today. And my understanding is, I don't know the factors, again, that went into that decision of granting that waiver at that time. But I would ask, to maybe hold a different perspective on water project engineering review. From NDP's perspective, we think that assuring compliance with the state regulations and assuring compliance with the design standards is a requirement that's placed on us by both NRS and by our delegation from EPA. I don't think that detection of a violation or violation of a water quality standard is a necessary precursor to reinstating project review. I think what we're talking about is a system which is preventive in nature. We're talking about public health protection. And so for us, we don't think the existing system that we're talking about is where every project needs to be reviewed, necessarily needs to remain in place. But we want to talk about replacing it with a system that involves periodic review, periodic auditing, as opposed to every single project. So, the questioning and the criticism is heard that there shouldn't be a discrepancy between different parts of the state. We understand that. It's a system we inherited. I came into this position in February, and so we're in the midst of trying to sort this out. It doesn't necessarily going to take an entire year to sort this out. The changes to the regulations that are needed may likely take that long, but the scope of the waiver doesn't have to take that long. We just need to work out the details of what's to replace it. So I hope that answers your question.
In some ways. I'm very proud of Tumwa. Are you familiar with our record? In other words, our customer service record and what customers actually think about Tumwa and our approval rating?
I understand Tumwa runs a very successful water system.
Highest in the state, maybe the highest in the West. 93% approval rating consistently. We deliver a great product, and I'm very proud of our engineers. I do not think we have substandard staff in any way, shape, or form.
Yes,
and I get a little defensive when I know that things are occurring differently in Southern Nevada. If it were all at the NDEP, then I would be very concerned. But basically what you have is you have another level, a local agency that is basically saying that we have a number of violations and we need to correct those violations along the way. And the same heavy-handedness is not being applied in the South, and that it's just a true concern for me. And so I appreciate NDEP's looking at this. I think that there's no question that interpretation is everything. Are we talking in terms of separation? Are we talking about center line or edge of pipe? But when those interpretations come down, I think it's only fair that we as an agency are given an opportunity to make some corrections without punitive measures being taken place in a removal of waiver, and it's very tough. And you heard people talking earlier. I mean, we have huge numbers of requests coming in. We have very high rates of growth, and every day matters for us. So I would beg NDEP to look at the regulations on an even hand. And it's not to tighten the regulations in Southern Nevada. It is to look at the regulations from a realistic point of view and what's really needed. And Tumwa's got a lot of PEs, a lot of engineers that can stamp things and take responsibility. And I think that that's really where we're coming from. I appreciate the time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. At this time, I have Councilwoman Dewar.
Thank you. Thanks so much for all of you being here. I know it's been a very difficult year. I serve on the Tumwa board as well as the Reno City Council, and we've heard, the issues throughout the year. And I just want to commend the three agencies for sitting down and working through these issues. I mean, it is often very easy, especially in short staffing times and when people are under pressure, to just be in your world, your silo, and do your thing. And to do this sort of crosswork and understand each other's challenges, timeframes, and requirements, takes an extraordinary level of service. So I appreciate what I've heard today. It really seems like you've made quite a significant number of improvements. I just had two questions on it. One for Mr. Lovato. Both you and Mr. Foray mentioned the need to work on changes to the NAC. And so I was wondering, is there a schedule for that, and when do you expect that to maybe happen?
So yes, we presented a schedule, at least anticipated in attachment 4. That's, going through the process to revise a regulation once you have it written takes about 3 to 4 months. We're planning on taking some time to form a work group so that we can receive input from the community. We're planning on starting that this month, but maybe starting those meetings in December. Those input meetings could take 3 to 4 months, depending on the range of players and the complexity of the changes we're making. What we're hoping to do is make those changes that are going to result in the most beneficial return on investment, I guess, so to speak. So we although there may be a preference to change things to make them very clear so that the next person isn't going to reinterpret them differently, I think we're hoping to show that the interpretations that are being made now are consistent, are faithful to the NAC, and there's a measure of trust that we lost, redeveloped, and that we're only focusing on changes that are really needed.
Okay.
And so I did propose a timeline that would have them revised through the State Legislative Commission, which is the legislative body that approves all of our regulations in October. I don't know if they're actually going to meet in October, but of next year. But it could happen sooner if our work group, wraps up sooner.
So you, bottom line, you've laid out a one-year process to get there. And I really can relate to what you said about adopting regulations by reference, because then as those change, they're automatically incorporated and updated so that you're not adopting a static, standard from years ago and then having to update the regulations again. So that is your plan, right? I heard you, I thought, say that.
Yes, for certain aspects of the regulations, including standards to American Water Works Association design standards, it's just more efficient to adopt those by reference. But there's others that may be dated that we want to make sure to not keep referencing.
Right.
And so we'll have to go through carefully and decide which ones apply and which ones don't. We've already started looking at adjacent states and what kind of flexibility they're afforded. And trying to choose the systems that are lightest touch regulatorily, but don't give up any public health protection.
Well, and don't misunderstand. I know how needed your agency is. I mean, your agency covers the whole state. There are a number of stories of challenges with wastewater and water being too near each other. I mean, the regulations that you enforce and that you oversee are needed statewide. I think it's just to Mr. Hartung's point, it's just to the level of at what point can you do a general delegation or, like you said, an occasional review to make sure we're on track. So I appreciate where you are. I would only ask that you do an occasional milestone update so that 1 year doesn't become 2. You know how these things happen. And maybe we can get that through Mr. Foray here, because you're not often up here. And that would be appreciative so we can keep our eye on the ball, which is what our job is, make sure things happen. I had a question for Mr. Dick, too. You had laid out a chart here of how things are and an ideal flow path. And I just wondered, was your plan to move to this ideal flow path, and what was your time frame for that?
So we're not really in a position where we can mandate a flow path. What we've been trying to do is to communicate to the development community, the design engineering community, this concept of trying to begin working with Tumwa as early in the process as practicable to try to streamline that. So we've had meetings with AGC and with the Builders Association of Northern Nevada and provided this same flow diagram to them and have discussed it with them. And it's just a matter of them putting this into their process.
So, sorry to interrupt. I mean, so bottom line with you, the main one change is that the developers would coordinate with Tumwa upfront and maybe even earlier in the process than some of the other issues because it takes a long time. And is that the only real difference between the two flow paths?
That's really the key to it. Is to,
because I have heard that from Tumwa staff as well, is that a project's all ready to go. We're doing our approval process at the elected level, and Tumwa's still back at the gate. The conversation hasn't happened, and they're very concerned. And so I think that, that's a great message to put out to our whole development community. Early, soon, better, works faster for them.
If I could just add to that also, there can be a double whammy if they're not working up front with Tumwa, because now they've put their civil plan design together, they've submitted it for the building permit. If something with the water project design then changes, that they may have to then resubmit all that civil plan again through the agencies, and that needs to come back to the health district to get matched up with the water project.
Back around. And I too just want to say I very much I know some of the members up here participated in, you're in the district health, Ms. Jung and others are in other forums and have, kind of used our collective wisdom and encouragement to get this fixed. So I appreciate what my colleagues have done there too. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Next, I have Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Foray, would you step up, please? Mark, have you ever recommended for approval a project that we didn't have the water supply for?
No, we have not.
Have you ever recommended a project where the quality of water was not up to standard?
No.
how about easements? When you recommend a project, it's already got the easements in place and ready to go?
That comes, excuse me, oftentimes the easement, if it's an easement required on public or private property, that comes a little bit after the fact. We have to have it before construction, but it's not usually provided first thing in the project.
Okay, so one of your major concerns is water quality and the supply. If we have that, and we have the ability to get it to wherever that project is.
That's correct.
That's
what
correct.
We do. That's what we do every day. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Could I, Mr. Dick, would you stand up, please? How many plans readers is employed by the Washington County Health Department?
We've got one licensed engineer that focuses on the water project review.
How about inspectors?
I don't think I could give you that number off the top of my head.
So in 2010, how many plans readers did you have?
In 2010? I don't have that number in my head.
Is it one? Did you have more during the recession than you do now?
I can't answer that question. I was not the health officer in 2010.
Pardon me?
Mr. Chairman, he wasn't the health officer back then.
My point is, you have one plans reader when we're in a period of growth. 2010, we were not growing. So if you had one back then, and I don't know that you did, isn't it time to maybe add a few more so we can speed up these projects?
We're assessing that. At this point, we have 4 projects that are in the queue for review through TUMWA. So I think we're fairly well on top of that. We've got the review times at currently at 12 calendar days, so within 2 weeks.
So the delays that we've been experiencing, is it due to the revisions that have to be made, or just you don't have the people to read the plans?
I think that there have been some significant delays because of the revisions that were required. And that's, I think, what's reflected when you look at FY17 statistics versus where we're at today, where those periods have been reduced both for TUMWA and the Health District's plan review, as well as for the design revisions required.
So you're saying that most of the delays are due to the revisions, not because we don't have enough people to actually read the plans and approve them?
Well, that's what the numbers tell us when we look at the timeline for this.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Dare.
Yes, I have a distinct point of view because I get to serve on both the Health Board, TUMWA, and City Council in Sparks. And so we've been a part of this conversation, and I would like to say these gentlemen did step up and started working together without question and moving forward. I think the biggest thing that needs to happen and continue, and I'd almost, if Mr. Dick, if you can share a little bit, these are the conversations I know we've had, but I think it's important everyone has for Max Haynes and any other developer out there to hear the communication of what is happening, because that's great that you're telling us, but we need our developers, we need our community to understand exactly what's expected of them, how it's going to work, and what's your future, how are you going to communicate this? I know we've talked a little bit about it, but would you expand upon that to show, because I think it's important. We can always look back, and there might be good conversation for that, but I do believe the future looks like stuff is solid. Things are moving in the right direction, and we want to show that this won't happen again. And it was obviously there's some perfect storm in here because there's a few things that are happening on all counts, but at the same time we're at this side of it now and moving forward. And so would you please explain how you're going to communicate and how that future will look for our developers?
Yes, thank you, Councilman Dare. We have been working very closely together, and I think we have 2 different strategies, maybe 3, for that communication. One is with us working as closely as we are at this point with the TUMWA review engineers, that information will be communicated back through them with the designers as they're working with them on the plan submittals. We also have an email list that we distribute out to the design engineering community. But we are fortunate in that the Builders Association in Northern Nevada have really worked to help us with that communication through their members. And so we'll continue to meet with them. When we met with them last month, we discussed the NAC revision process and the development of a work group. So I would encourage people to participate through that forum if they want to be involved in the ideas around how we're going to change those regulations. We have a successful track record in previously working together with BAN and NDEP to achieve some regulatory changes in the development process that helped with grading earlier in subdivision development. So I think we can work well together to address the remaining issues that we have in NAC, and we'll be communicating through that process and through those forums, as well as AGC, to get the word out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dare. Next, I have Councilman Bobzian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think first what I'd like to address is just get a little more clarity from NDEP as to what their role is going to be in this waiver situation. So, Mr. Lovato, if you could just come back. And I'm going to preface this by saying what we're dealing with right now is it could be a lot worse. I mean, the Clean Water Act and the powers that are delegated to state and local governments to deal with these regulatory matters at a local level, we would much prefer this than not having any say whatsoever. I mean, this is classic marble cake federalism. We got to untangle it. We got to make it work better. But I'd rather have this situation than what the alternative would be. And I think the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that as we are trying to work through an update to the NAC and trying to work through this waiver situation, we can do both. We can protect water quality at the same time that we're being more responsive to our constituents in this period of growth. And if we're not careful, you end up like Flint, Michigan. And I'm sorry if that sounds a little harsh, but it's true. I mean, that is the story of what happened in Michigan. As I understand it, we're looking at reinstating, and I'm going to have some questions about the waiver for all the parties. We're looking at this waiver for the projects 500 linear feet or more. And certainly the waiver and the execution of a waiver certainly helps NDEP. So you have an interest in making sure that this happens, but that it happens in a responsible way. And I think you did mention that you wanted to see that there was a system in place that was auditable, trackable, accountable. Can you kind of give us a little bit more about your activities in helping us facilitate the waiver? So counter to what Commissioner Hartung said, but I'm going to grab a little bit of it. We certainly want to make sure that there's as much support for a waiver in Northern Nevada as there is in Southern Nevada. So can you give us a little bit more about how you're going to be working with all of our parties in the weeks to come on this waiver?
Thank you, Councilman Bobzian. So one of the things we looked at, and just from my experience in environmental regulation in general, when you're going to pull a permit or issue a violation, or if there's operating conditions at a facility that are so severe that they need to be shut down until something can be fixed, it's the obligations on the regulatory agency to be very clear about what needs to be done to get back on, to solve the problem. And so compliance is always our first goal. And so what we started to do with TUMWA is look back at, since the waiver was pulled in March, how many projects would have gone for the waiver, and have there been any concerns related to project reviews associated with those? And what we're finding is, there are still some issues coming up. There are issues with detailed designs that, to me don't necessarily merit a review of every project going forward, but I think they do point to the need for, a quality control system to be in place in TUMWA that we can all rely on, and that we can audit. And so, we're committed to participating in development of that with TUMWA and with Washoe County Health District. Washoe County Health District has a role in granting that waiver. It wouldn't just be a decision solely by NDEP, but we want to help to make sure that whatever we replace it with is efficient but still protective. So that discussion is happening now. My goal is to have some, specific decisions about what would be needed to grant the waiver this month, and then develop a timeline for doing that. But it's at the top of our list, I guess, is what I could say.
Great, thank you. That is good to hear, and I want to correct the record. It's 500 feet or less. I misspoke as I was trying to put together my question. And I guess the next question is for Mr. Dick. You know, what's struck me as this, what has struck me about this issue is that we've all heard the inputs. I mean, each and every one of us, regardless of which hat we have, whether it's the health board, whether it's sitting on TUMWA, our respective local government responsibilities, we've gotten the pieces, and here we are trying to put all the pieces together. And I'm very appreciative to Commissioner Lucy and the mayor for bringing this meeting together so that we can kind of sort it all out and figure out where we're going. And I think that that's going to be important for tracking the progress as we're going forward. Other members up here have said that we've got an NAC calendar for updates. We're going to be a part of that. And we should be ready to assist where needed, but also tracking this waiver and understanding the progress and making sure that happens, whether that's in a concurrent setting, whether that's respective on our respective roles on TUMWA or the health board. I'm still trying to understand what happened with the waiver being pulled, and I get that there's increased complexity for the TUMWA system once they had brought in Washoe County Water Resources, South Truckee Meadows, GID, et cetera. But help me understand, because they're not necessarily represented here. I'm a little confused by this. The health board, was this a strictly regulatory decision to pull the waiver back? Was there an update that was given to the health board? And what role does the board play in revisiting this waiver?
The decision was not made by the District Board of Health. It was a regulatory decision that was made. I would have to go back and look at the report from Environmental Health on the waiver being revocation being provided to the board off the top of my head. I can't answer that question. I have, though, subsequent to that, briefed the board on water projects. It's been on my monthly report for a number of these past months, and have been providing them with a monthly update on the status. So certainly they have been briefed on that since that point.
Okay, that's good to hear. I just want to frame this that, look, let's just keep this moving forward, and let's just make sure we've got as much transparency in place for these different entities so that we can make sure that we can make progress on this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Councilman Babazian. Next, I have Councilman McKenzie.
Thank you, Chairman Lucy, and Mr. Dick. I get a couple questions for you again. So I spent quite a bit of time meeting with development community about their concerns with the permitting process, and this chart in attachment 3 outlines a different story than what I heard from the development committee or from the development community. So there's a couple of questions that I'd like to ask that pertains to how you guys handle the permitting process. In 2017, it says that it was taking you 18 days to review plans and get them back to the developers, and it's saying now in 2018 that's reduced to an 8-day period. Those plans were then sent back to the design engineers for revisions. That's the time that are they approved then, or do they come back for review again?
Then they do return to us for review of the revisions that have occurred.
So are we sitting on 18 in 2017 and 12 days in 2018 for those revisions to be reviewed again?
The revision review time, we try to reduce that from the original review time, but I don't have that number in front of me. This is your average between initial and revision review.
And how many plans that come back for review are sent back again to the design engineer for review again?
It's our hope that very few would go for an additional review.
Okay. Have we got a member of the development community willing to come up and answer a couple questions? It doesn't matter who it is. I just want somebody that's got some stuff, did some stuff in 2018 and is doing some stuff in 2017, because we're hearing that the process is improving greatly, And I just want to see how that's going back to the development community. How's it working for you guys now?
For the record, my name is Steve Strickland. I am Vice President and Managing Partner of Wood Rogers in Reno, engineering firm. We've got 85 professionals doing our work here in town. We do the lion's share of land development work in this community. I would concur that the system has improved. Last year, I felt like we were moving through a moving target. Every month, we had a new challenge to try to face. And Mr. Dick kind of addressed that you know, those things have settled down and the process has gotten better. But if I can speak to the ideal process that was addressed, I think it might be helpful for you guys to understand what our process is. So when we develop a set of subdivision plans, for example, we've got the civil improvement plans, and those civil improvement plans have water, sewer, drainage, grading, streets, all of those things, utilities on there. Those plans get submitted to whichever entity, Washoe County, City of Reno, City of Sparks, and they go through the process in those entities. Separate process is a process through TUMWA. So TUMWA, we give them the pertinent civil improvement plans that they need to review, but they also have a separate set of water plans. Generally, our goal is to try to get those submitted as close together as possible so that they're moving through the process at the same time. So when we submit to the City of Reno, for example, those plans are being reviewed by the planning department, the engineering department, the fire department, and all the other people that need to look at those plans. And the water plans are being reviewed by TUMWA. It's not until those other things are almost completely done and we get through the TUMWA process that the health department even gets our plans. So that's one of the challenges and why it's so important that this waiver and the push to, you know, go to an audit system would be so beneficial, because the system as it stands now is a system in series. We can't even get to the health department until we're through TUMWA. Meanwhile, we've got everybody else taken care of, and it's another step that we have to go through that we cannot do in parallel. It's not possible. So we can get the plans into TUMWA as soon as possible, but the reality is we've got to have the other engineering plans done already as well, and there's only so much that we can do. So it's super important. And I was going to speak earlier, and if you don't, or speak later.
Mr. Strickland, can we finish with some questions first, and then we'll come back to further public input?
Okay, so while the process is improved, and I would guess that I'm looking at this timeline, and it looks like your days, the days that you're spending on this have improved, have shortened considerable, and I would assume that that's probably because you're more aware of what the process that is expected of you is. You're more aware of that now than you were last year, for example.
I think that's the biggest change, is that the target is not moving as much.
Okay, and then I've heard from several members of the development community that they send them to the health department, they get sent back, they send them again, they get sent back, they send them again, they get sent back. Is that process, is that been your experience in the past, and is it currently the problem, or is that not been happening with you?
One of the challenges that we've had with health department comments is that the comment would come back and it would just tell us that we did not meet NAC code X. It would not tell us where on the plans that we didn't meet X. It would not tell us how many places that may have occurred. And so we were in a position of going back through the entire set of plans, which is fine, and looking. But if we missed it the first time, we may have missed it the second time. You know, those plans are complicated. We've got lots of masters to satisfy as we're going through those plans. And, you know, sometimes we can miss something. We're not perfect.
So has that improved in 2017, or are we still having that issue?
I have not seen that part of it change.
Okay. So that was one of the big concerns I heard from the development community, was that, and then when their plans go back, they go to the bottom of the queue, and you might wait 12 days again before they got to the top, and the guy looked at them and then made the same comment and sent them back to you again for your review again, and didn't give you any further direction. That was the understanding I was getting from the development community, was what the big issue was. If they'd get a complete review, complete comment, they could fix things and get it back, and it wouldn't have to keep going through the revolving door. And that's the door I want fixed. And I'm sure that you'd like to see it fixed as well. So, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. Councilwoman Jordan.
I think I'm on.
Now you're on.
Thank you, and I appreciate everybody coming together here today, all in the same room. I think, for those of us that have been working on this issue over the last year, kind of felt like we were at Groundhog's Day. Every meeting we would have, we were talking about the same thing, and we were talking about others versus everybody kind of getting together and talking with each other. And it didn't feel like the needle really got moved until we went to the governor's office. And NDEP was very gracious, and the governor made it a priority. And now the needle's moving because the heat is on. And I just want to make sure with the heat on that the heat stays on, that some of these issues, that are causing delays and costing millions, day delays in the development world can be significant. Not to mention we need more product out in the market to help stabilize our housing situation. So my question is this. I've heard it kind of said we are making a priority, getting the waiver back to Tumwa. And I know there's some administrative and things that need to occur. Do we have a timeline when we think that will occur?
Thank you, Councilman Jardin. This is Greg Lovato for the record. So the decision to grant the waiver is really a joint decision. NDEP is advising the health district, but the health district makes the decision on the waiver. Our goal is to sit down with Tumwa this month and come up with what's it going to take to replace it, right? So, as we talked about earlier, the state's position is that some type of focused review is warranted, not no review. And so our goal is to sit down this month and come up with those plans. How long it will take to put that into place, I can't say today, but I think we can come back or we can report back through staff that we've made progress on that this month and what it's going to take to put the waiver back in place. I personally think that the right way to do it was would have been when the waiver was pulled to say, do ABC, it's back. And so now we're playing catch up and saying, well, what is that? And so figuring that out, and so we're going to figure that out this month.
As quickly as we can.
Yes.
Again, I know for maybe some in the room, this seems like, it's all, information is all coming together here today, but we've been kind of living in this world of meetings for the last year. And I'm not going to go backwards with regards to the frustrations, but I want to ensure the management meetings where everybody's getting together and kind of vocalizing concerns or process improvements. How often when are those meetings occurring, and how often, and who's included in those meetings? Does the development community sit in those meetings? Any elected sit in those meetings? How are we ensuring that all the right people are in the room to make sure the ball keeps moving?
So the meetings that Mark Foray referred to earlier in terms of director meetings, those have basically been occurring since late August to try to make sure that the priorities are there, that we aren't encountering the revolving door that Councilman McKenzie referred to earlier, that we're not queuing projects by when they come in the door, but by the how quickly we can get them back out, and so we need to prioritize projects, not just by when they come in the door, but if we can handle something quickly, let's do that. And so that's been happening. We've been meeting regularly, I'd say every 2 to 3 weeks between Mark, Kevin, and I, and that's just working on that communication, working on that process within this existing system. Now, moving forward, we're going to have to set up a work group for revisions to the NAC. We're probably envisioning 3 to 4 meetings in the December to, depending on how long it takes, time frame to come up with the scope, come up with the regulations, get the feedback, get input before we hand it to the Legislative Council Bureau. Those are procuring on a pretty regular basis. We're open to coming back, as Councilman Bobzian stated, and briefing on our progress of how that's going, briefing on the progress of the waiver and how that's going. Hope that answers your question.
It does. And
Okay.
again, thank you. Like I said, when we met with the governor's office, that's when it seemed as though the needle started to move. And I appreciate your focus and the governor's making this a priority. Mr. Dick, I do have a question for you. Who does the District Board of Health work for?
The District Board of Health is appointed by the jurisdictions, one elected and one appointed from each jurisdiction. And then that group of 6 appoints a physician. And I believe that the District Board of Health works for the people of our community to ensure that their health is protected.
So all of them, Sparks, Reno, Washoe County, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jordan. Next, I have Commissioner Jung.
To follow that up, Mr. Dick, what is the mission of the District Board of Health?
The mission of the Board of Health is to enhance and protect the health of people in our community.
Right, so we're not a sub-entity of any city or county or other jurisdictions, correct?
The District Board of Health is falls under NRS 429. It sets up the mechanism for a District Board of Health and establishes that board as the body with authority for all public health matters in Washoe County.
So we don't work to enhance the economic development of the region, correct?
Well, that's not a specific mission of the Board of Health. I think that I think we all understand that if we have a better economy, we're in a better
Healthier
situation
community.
for people to have better health in our community.
Certainly, but that's not our role, goal, function, nothing like that.
No, it's not.
Thank you. One thing I have to say, and I think it's been said before up here, I do appreciate that everyone was able to come together and work together from the state level to the TUMWA level to the Board of Health level. And moving forward, I think that's the most important thing. Instead of doing the look back, let's look forward and make sure that we keep improving these timeframes and keep the communication open when there is an issue. It shouldn't have went to the governor's office. It should have been able to have been solved with all of you initially, but sometimes it takes a little bit of a push for that to change. So I appreciate the fact that you've come together. I appreciate you, Ms. Carr, for coming up here on Friday so we can go over some of these issues. Councilman Delgado was initially going to attend that, and he got an offender bender on the way. So we spent a good couple hours just going over each of the critical points here, and I do appreciate that. As of what date would you say the complaints come from? Is there a time that they've stopped? Is there a time when they are the worst? Because I'm getting ready to hear the public comment, and I'd rather hear about when did we fix it? Could you say September 1st? I'm not saying completely fix it, but I'm saying in terms of the critical mass of the timelines, where were the complaints generated? What dates?
I think that we really started hearing in April and May of this year a lot of concerns. We've been working to address what we can address. There are limitations because of NAC of how much we can do to change those requirements and expedite the process without some of the changes that both Mr. Forey and Mr. Lovato have talked about through that NAC revision process. I can tell you that we had a meeting at the Builders Association last month, and the discussion we did hear a lot of complaints of things that had occurred, and as we started talking about, well, when did this occur? Some of them were 5 months in the past. I think that September 1st is probably a good date to key off of as far as when we'd implemented changes and had improvements in the way TUMWA and the Health District were working together on that design process to improve the plans moving forward. When we did throw out that date, we didn't hear any complaints that were during that period. But I would welcome anybody that does have a specific complaint to please let me know. That's the same thing I said at the Builders Association, because it's very difficult to try to fix a problem if I'm hearing about it secondhand through an elected representative versus really knowing what project it is and what I can do to try to fix anything that's going wrong at the Health District.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Jung. Madam Mayor.
Hi. Okay, thank you very much. Good comments, Commissioner Jung. I agree with you. It's much better to look forward than backward. We can't cry over spilled milk. I would like to commend all three of you for coming together. It really means a lot. Mr. Lovato, Mr. Forey, and Mr. Dick. So I will say, though, I still am concerned a little bit about this communication issue. I've been in several meetings with our county manager, our city manager, and Sparks manager. And one of the things that we had suggested was that, and this was something that the city of Reno would pay for, is a liaison between the city of Reno and the health department and planning, so that those process and plans, we would all sort of be on the same page, because we knew there was this communication issue. So, Mr. Dick, I understand this was presented to you and it wasn't something you were amenable to. I still think it's a very valid idea to keep all of us on the same communication track. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the idea of a liaison is not what was presented. I think what was requested was a dedicated person to just do the Reno plan reviews, was my understanding of it. But we are certainly liaisoning with the city of Reno and meet with your representatives. Since I went to the city council meeting and you invited the health district to participate in your monthly or your weekly meetings Monday morning, the office hours for development projects, I would characterize it as we have participated in those meetings. But that said, I think that there are opportunities for improvement. One of the things that we talked about was a courier delivery. Right now, the health district is picking up plans for review, and we think it would expedite the process if we had a system in place to have those delivered to the health district. One of the things that we haven't talked about is the implementation of our regional business licensing and permitting platform, Acela. And I think there are opportunities for improvement in Acela and with the workflows between the jurisdictions and the health district that could, one, help that workflow process, and two, provide more utilization of Acela for transparency in seeing where these projects are, how the water project is incorporated. One of the entities that we didn't include in the Acela implementation is Tumwa. And so I think we should be thinking as well about can we enhance that system by providing, having Tumwa utilize it as well, so we see the whole picture with what's going on in these projects.
Mm-hmm. So I apologize, maybe it was a representative liaison, whatever you call it. I just think that the communication still can be a little bit spotty. I also think not just with the business or the development sector, but also the business sector. A lot of those complaints will come through my office, and it seems to me that a lot of the game changes and people don't know what those rules are. So I am very concerned moving forward. It's like Councilwoman Jordan said, really getting more product into this market, because we do have to stabilize it because it's moving so fast. You guys are at a critical point, all three of you. So it's so important that you hear this and you understand, and it sounds like you do. So it's certainly something that I'm going to keep an eye on. But I also would like to say that moving forward, I honestly would ask the support of all the jurisdictions moving forward, much like Commissioner Bigler and I did, Burke Bigler and I did at the state level, at possibly supporting a bill draft request, so that all three of you can work together in a manner that we're all clear and we have an idea of what that looks like moving forward. So I appreciate how far you guys have come, but I think this is long overdue. So, but I do appreciate your communication and us moving forward.
Well, and I appreciate your comments, and I do concede that our lack of communication on the front end of this, with the changes that we were making in that review process, did cause a lot of this disruption that's occurred. And so certainly a focus of mine to make sure that we are communicating and we're working closely with the development community as we move forward.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Harton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and this will be just sort of one final thought. The assertion that problems need to be fixed is, it the overture is that Tumwa's system is a ticking time bomb, and that we're going to see all of these major problems occur. And I refuse to believe that. We have great staffs of engineers. On the other side, all of our staffs recognize design by review issues, where a project is submitted and our planning staff has to look through it and red lines, and that design by review process is very time consuming for our staff. However, having no red lines, just having it denied that's very disconcerting to me. I taught school for many, many years, and I never gave a paper back without telling them what the problem was. So it's, you know, you have to identify the problem. Here's the closing thought. If water projects are, submittals are not required in Southern Nevada now, then why can't we reverse this in Northern Nevada? Why wait a year, go through the process of making changes, and I understand, and I'm not suggesting that changes don't need to be made. My suggestion is that instead of holding this up for an entire year, let's reverse this process and make Southern Nevada and Northern Nevada equal entities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Hartung. At this time, I'm going to move to public comment. I would like to get the input from the public that have signed in this morning on this topic. So first, I have Mr. Don Tatro, followed by Mr. Joel Grace. Good morning, Mr. Tatro.
Good morning. Don Tatro with the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. Thank everyone for putting this meeting together. This has been one of the biggest issues we've dealt with in my time at the Builders Association. And I thank everyone here, NDP, Health, Tumwa. I think we've all kind of come together from where we were in April. It was pretty heated at my office. We had some changes coming down the pipe. Nobody knew how to get ready for it. It was a constantly evolving thing. And these aren't issues. Everyone wants safe drinking water. Everyone wants to make sure that happens. I don't think just so you know, we're not up here just nitpicking. It was a conversation on a drip sprinkler system and how close that could be to a fire hydrant. And I don't think anyone will get up here and say that you're going to have a drip sprinkler system infiltrate the 80 psi water pressure valve behind it. It's physically impossible. So that was one of the issues we were dealing with, and plans are having to be altered and changed. So we've come a really long way. That was day one, I think, or at least ground zero of this issue. We've met with Vice Mayor Jardin, Mayor Sheevey, Commissioner Lucy. We went down to the governor's office. We've had multiple meetings to try and get this addressed. So I thank you for coming here today. I hope we can put this, keep continuing forward. I think the first thing is to get the waiver. Second thing is to update NAC to make it relative so that we can use some of the newer techniques that are out there that are probably more environmentally friendly, probably better at conserving water and helping Tumwa with that. I think also a BDR request and maybe outlining how we go through this process in the future might be beneficial as well, and getting it dictated by NRS. So anyway, I just wanted to thank everyone for their time. Again, Health Department, NDP, and Tumwa have been great to work with. We've, I think, got to the bottom of the problem and moving forward, and I hope we can continue to make those changes. Happy to answer any questions, but thank you again. And like I say, we all want safe water systems. We just want a predictable and stable environment so we know the rules when we're submitting those plans. And so anyhow, thanks much.
Thank you, Mr. Tatro. Mr. Joel Grace, followed by Ms. Bobby Merrigan.
Good morning. Joel Grace, Vice President of Development for Reno Land. Great to have everybody here this morning. Glad that this conversation is taking place. I think the biggest thing is kind of what Commissioner Hartung said, trying to, rather than reinvent the wheel, why don't we just take what's already working and move forward on that basis? Because this all comes down to macroeconomics. Rents are high right now because of lack of supply. So the faster we get these projects moving, the more units that are available, rents come down quicker. Our vacancy rate in multifamily right now is at 1.17%. Very unhealthy, so we need projects to be built and as fast as possible. So I'm looking at these timeframes here at 18 days and 12, and that's great. But by the time they go back and forth, that's probably another 30 days. Tumwa, that was the first time I'd heard Tumwa's record at 16-0. That's pretty damn good. So I don't see why they obviously are capable of doing, and approving these projects. They have a ton of professionals. The people they're working with, like Wood Rogers, 80-something, professional engineers. So we're not talking about just people who don't know what they're doing. Or I just don't see the issue for redundancy. I can see oversight, but I don't see why we need to recreate the wheel here when Southern Nevada is working perfectly. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grace. Ms. Bobby Merrigan, followed by Mr. Steve Strickland.
Good morning, everybody. For the record, Bobby Merrigan. I work for Ryder Homes, and I also chair the I&P committee at the Builders. I wanted to start this morning by just thanking you all. I feel like for the last year, we've had so many different folks in front of the Builders and tried to really hone in, and I appreciate your willingness to listen and to finally hear us. It's interesting to me that through all of this, we finally come together, and I think we've all sort of, it sounds a little dramatic, but been screaming for help. So I appreciate so much your willingness to listen. I can report to you that I just had a project go through Tumwa within 30 days, and I got health approval in 9 days. So things are changing, things are improving. Now, that doesn't mean we fixed the problem, because I think we're a ways away from that. But all of this communication, I feel like there's no better way for us all to get to the end goal than to communicate. And that's really all I have to say. So thank you so much for your willingness to listen.
Thank you, Ms. Merrigan. Mr. Steve Strickland, followed by Ms. Tammy Holtstill.
Again, Steve Strickland with Wood Rogers. Again, I want to thank everybody for having this meeting today. I think the fact that we have a joint session of all the entities here, as well as the directors and deputy directors, speaks to the magnitude of the challenges that we've been having over the last year and the importance that this group has seen, to improve it and get it better. So I do really appreciate that. Mr. Dick and I have met on several occasions on many of these issues. He has always been super open to me and has always listened. We don't always agree, but that's okay. He's always been very receptive and helpful. What I wanted to pass along was that, we are here because of people on these boards that pushed to get it here. You guys heard us, you pushed, and things happened. And we have an opportunity to make some real change with the new system that they're talking about going to an audit system and all that. There's work that has to be done, but it's not going to happen unless you continue to push from your chairs. So I implore you to do that so we keep the momentum that we've gained, that we've fought hard to get. And I just strongly encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Ms. Tammy Holtstill, followed by Mr. Sam Dene.
We will need the overhead, please.
Great. Can we get the overhead?
Tammy Holtstill for the record. Inland Valley Swan Lake Recovery Committee. I'm going to be going at this a little bit differently, so please understand and follow what I'm going through. I like to start with, this is Burning Man back in spring of this year. See the water on the playa? My next picture is going to be Lemon Valley. You can see the excess of water on the playa. Now we're going to go to our next picture, which is Burning Man this year. There's no water on the playa, okay? Now we're going to go as of the picture taken yesterday from the same location that I took.
Ms. Holtstill, how does this pertain to the...
You will see, please, now I have extra time, thank you. You can see the extra water still on the playa. As you see, there are differences there. As I've done my further research, you will find there is clay on both of those surfaces. I have done my research, and in that research, I have found that Golden Valley has a recharge system that is owned by Washoe County and is serviced by Tumwa. Tumwa also has in the Lemon Valley aquifer and hydrological basin a recharge system that is done through the Fish Springs Fiddler line, which is recharging the system. These lines have been recharging through 2016. There is no charging done on the Burning Man. What I'd like to know is, does Tumwa have the mapping of the underground water systems, or the aquifers? Does Tumwa, with all of their hydrologists, know what the recharging system does to the playas that they are in front of? And have they practiced or done the full research on what this does? To me, it would be like a sponge. It only soaks up so much water, and then it runs off. By recharging the systems, it looks like Tumwa is running out of room for their water. I understand having water for additional development, but you got to make sure that your other water is not damaging the residents. I'd also like to know why Tumwa, with all of the hydrologists they don't have a certified federal water master to handle the aquifer system that they are recharging. We are here about Tumwa. This is what I'm talking about. This is one of the things that we have seen, that Silver Lake, Swan Lake, and White Lake, being that their aquifers are being recharged, are causing a lot of what is happening in our areas. So thank you for interrupting me. This is important to us.
Thank you, Mrs. Holtstill. Next, I have Mr. Sam Dene. I don't see Sam in the audience, so we will move on. I'll bring him back to the board at this time. Final comments by any of the board members or council members at this time. Mr. Bobzian.
Just trying to move this along and looking to the mayor. Are we looking for some motion to sort of
Yeah, and if I could
clarify
just
what
close out
we're
with one
looking for?
comment, and
Sure.
then we'll
Yep.
and we'll jump right to this kind of. And I do want to point out that we did lose a quorum of the city of Sparks, but we do have members still here available to talk. One thing I want to point out is that I'm encouraged by today's meeting. I'm encouraged that we're going to see some movement, some final movement forward. I have been involved in this since early April. Deputy Carr, I can see you back there behind the podium. But Administrator Lovato, Mr. Dick, Mr. Foray, all have been very involved with this since that time. And I'm encouraged that the four of you have been able to come together with some solutions. I was looking forward to today's meeting and hearing what I've heard, and many of my questions have been answered in directions that I've been looking for. And I look forward to further communication between the four of you, but not only between the four of you, but more to the public as well, and continuing to work with the builders and many of our agencies to make sure that any changes that we see. I think one of the big challenges that we have in this community, and we've seen in years prior, is sometimes the lack of balance. Sometimes that scale tips either way very easily. I recognize the extreme importance of the health department and the important role that you play within our community in maintaining the safety and security of our citizens, and making sure that, and also within the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection, how important that your agencies play a role in everyday society. I also see that we also sit on a very a new housing crisis, or a crunch, so to speak, in regards to how our rents are going up and how we're going to be able to continue to drive homes for our citizens that are moving into our area. It's a very desirable area to be in. And so finding that unique balance is going to take continued resources and continued participation by all four of your entities to make sure that Northern Nevada maintains a safe and secure place, but a place that's viable for economic development and continued growth. So through this communication and availability, I look forward to it. One thing I would ask is that, that either departments, whomever may be responsible, whether it's NDEP, Health Department, or TUMWA, that one of you comes to all three of our agencies and at the first availability based upon the reinstatement of the waiver, and notify us so that we can report that back. So one of the key things is I want to make sure that every member, every elected official that is up here has continued the same story, that we have all the information available to us. So if that could be submitted to us as soon as that is available, that would be fantastic. Another thing I would like to look at is, as we look forward as these changes based upon the timeline you presented to us today, is that we get a quarterly report of where your status is, a report to all the entities about where we're going and how the shareholder meetings are participating, the comments you've received back, so that we can participate in some way, shape, or form and make sure that those things are being dealt with on our level in a way we can help. And also, what I would like to look is one of my is finding available ways that Tumwa and the health department can also review plans and anything going forward. That those review processes can coincide, not be systematically one right behind another, but can coincide at the same time, so that we're trying to streamline, yet at the same time maintain the quality of the process. Those would be my simple requests to you and all four of you, but I want to thank you for your time. I know it's been 7 months, but where we've come from in 7 months has been tremendous, and I would share Mr. Tetra's comments that it did start out heated, and it did start out very contentious, but it has changed. The tone has changed tremendously from 7 months ago to today, and I look forward to where we go on the next few months, over to a year. So with that, I would turn it over to Councilman Lawson.
You guys, and I've been quiet through this whole thing, and I think you guys have done a great job, and thank you for that, and getting at least in the right place. But I want you to think about this as you go forward, is to hear the stories that I hear, because we don't have enough housing right now, where we're displacing people on fixed incomes that are now becoming our homeless problem, that now are an issue in other areas of our communities. So the longer we fight about this and the longer we fool around and delay projects, and we've had some projects delayed in Sparks, 19 weeks to get a permit, that's outrageous. That's not acceptable on any level, way, shape, or form. That needs to be corrected. I think you're in the right direction, but keep in mind that every day you wait is another person on a fixed income that's going to become displaced from their house. So we don't have a year to fool around with this. And a year from now, we can't build houses fast enough at this point. A year from now, we're going to have a homeless problem that is outrageous, not for just Reno and Spark, but in the entire region. So I'm encouraging you guys to remember, every day there's someone else going to get displaced from their apartment or their house.
Mayor Shavy.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if we need to take a motion, but I would like to make some pretty strict requests. One of those requests would be, will you be continuing to go to the Monday morning development meetings at the City of Reno? And if not, will you please send a representative there? Would that be something that we can see at the City of Reno, Mr. Dick?
We have been attending those meetings, and as long as people show up for the meetings, then we'll continue to attend them.
Okay, and then also, again, going back to sort of the request that we thought that might be helpful, that person, whatever you want to call it, a liaison, a staff member, whatever, and it was something that we said that we would pay for on our end to make sure that we had that communication going forward, because I want to make sure that we continue to stay on track. And then I think you mentioned, Commissioner, about quarterly update.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I would like to see something in 30 days, what your plans are to improve that communication. And then also I would like to say, Commissioner Hartung, I couldn't agree with you more in the sense that how I would also like to see a plan in place how we get on the same page as Southern Nevada. So with that.
Mayor, I have a few more comments just right down here.
Okay.
Councilwoman Jordan.
Thank you very much. And I, too, am encouraged by what has occurred here today. And again, we'll leave the past where it is. But I did want to lay some stats down on you just so you kind of understand the situation that we're in. And it's not just Reno. It's happening in many cities across the nation that are suffering through the housing crunch that we're in with a vacancy rate that is virtually none. The realities used to take about 30 days to place somebody from the homeless shelter into a single room occupancy affordable unit. That's now taking about 90 days because there's just not any inventory. And you can imagine the competition for the inventory that is there. We're now seeing people competing for our weekly motels. if you can imagine that. And it's displacing individuals out onto the street, which has all sorts of impacts, which we are trying to address on some emergency basis right now. But for the first time ever, I did want to give some stats really quick. This has never occurred before winter, ever, in the city of Reno. Our 250-bed emergency shelter on Record Street is full. Our temporary overflow shelter, which is no longer temporary, 150 beds, which we doubled this last winter, is full. 35 people slept outside Record Street gates, count when we got these stats last week, because it was full. And 40 people were sleeping along the river. And winter hasn't even hit yet, folks. So when we talk about the need for expediting projects and getting more inventory on the market, I agree when we say think about those vulnerable populations. Those are the numbers and those are the situations that we're facing. So I appreciate everybody making this a priority. Certainly the governor's office did. I appreciate everybody coming together to solve this.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Commissioner Hartung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't know and I just want to plant this seed. Tumwa board, we are styled for action if necessary. If we would like to give direction to staff, let's think about that and let's propose that direction. And then my final comment is, and this is a plea to the Board of Health, please, please, why wait a year? Let us deal with this now. We can do this fairly quickly. Tumwa is very competent. We have great engineers. Why wait? Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Madam Mayor for your counsel.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilman Delgado.
Thank you very much, and I'll be quick. As Councilman Lawson has stated, I stayed relatively quiet this entire session because I believe that you guys have done a tremendous amount of work. Just reviewing the staff items laid out clearly, and we've taken ownership where we could have done better, and we moved forward on that. So I congratulate all of you guys on moving forward, and congratulate the board on pushing your boards, the boards that you're on. Commissioner Hartung, we can't move anything quicker than reestablishing the waiver and then going through the LCB route. So you can't do it within a year's time frame. I know you're asking of that, but I think from the health board's perspective, we could look at reestablishing that waiver, and that sounds like that's what we're currently doing. So thank you for everyone on taking reassurance of that, understanding that we do have a housing issue. We also have a quality of jobs issue and a wages issue. So there's a lot of different issues here in our community. I think this board can have that discussion and the complexities of all that. But thank you all for being here today, and I'm looking forward to having those come back to us at our board meetings and getting those periodic updates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to look right back at you, Councilman Bob Zine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just think that a motion and action taken by our council is important to memorialize kind of the outcome of this discussion, which I think has been very productive. And I think we all
Well, and it gives everyone clarity of what
just understanding of what's going forward. And I think specific to the city of Reno, what we're doing, what we would do, and what this motion would do would be to give specific direction to our city staff as to how we're receiving information from all the parties that we had assembled here. So it's a two-part motion: direction to city staff, number one, to request updates and continue communication with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection as relates to the NAC updates and that calendar that was laid out, which I think is very reasonable. That's how long it takes, but there's a lot of opportunity there. And so for the opportunity for the city to be supportive of that effort, that would be the first part of it. The second would be regular updates, with the first one being 30 days from now. The city requests from both Tumwa and the District Board of Health on two things. Number one, the status of the waiver and how that negotiation is going. And then number two, I think a broad bucket of process improvements. We certainly heard about the revolving door, but there's also things that it seems like everyone has already identified as items to work on. So that would be the other piece that we would request. So that would be my motion.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
All right. Commissioner Hartung, would you like to take something for Tumwa at this time?
I'll ask my board, do we want to put, give staff any direction, put anything down in writing?
What I would, what I would recommend It's working, is just very similar to Councilman Bobzian's motion, is just to keep this front and center and to bring back an update to the Tumwa Board on the progress of the waiver, since it's so very important, and any other improvements that are being made. And I think we just need those updates monthly, if not monthly, then bi-monthly, but at least this next month. So.
Okay, so at every.
So that would be a motion.
And I'd second that.
At every regular meeting?
Right.
For clarification?
That
Okay.
we should add it to the manager's report.
Okay, okay.
And I'd second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Dewar, second by Mr. Dare. Any other discussion from the Tumwa Board? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, I'll be looking for a motion from the Washoe County Commissioners in regards to any direction, further direction on this topic.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Commissioner Jung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, in conformance with Councilman Bobzien and the Tumwa Board, but I want to put it in a sort of priorities. Number one, the waiver is the most important, so that needs to go forward. Number two, we do need to pressure and provide technical support so that the NAC can be updated to reflect current technologies. And then number three, as either the Board of Health or the Board of Commissioners or some other entity, maybe regional, look at a BDR in the long term so that we have clear plan Bs and Cs.
Second that.
Great. I have a motion by Commissioner Jung, second by Commissioner Hartung. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our agenda item for today. I want to thank everybody who participated in this item, and we are now moving on to item 7, comments from councils, commissions, boards, or managers. Any further comments from any of the members? Commissioner Hartung.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the RTC Board for approving Calle de la Plata and Pyramid, the signalization. Thank you so much. It is long overdue. We had an accident the other day. I've told people that it is coming, and so again, thank you so much for that support.
Great. All right. Any further comments from any of the members? Seeing none, we will close public. We have final public comment, item 8. And I do have public comment signed in at this time. Ms. Tammy Holt still.
That's a big fucking win. Larkin couldn't do shit over there. You know that, right?
You couldn't do shit for what?
Tammy Holtz.
That kind of dude.
Tammy Holt still for the record, Swan Lake, Lemon Valley. Too bad NDEP left already, because I think this is important for them to understand that they're part of what needs to make the city of Reno and Washoe County step up and do the right things for Lemon Valley. I know a lot of the board up here is also on the regional. I would really urge Sparks to step up in regional and look at the situations that are being created out in areas that are not in their realm, but it is part of your realm because we are all Washoe County. I will wish that the governor could hear this, because he's our #1 Washoe County resident. And the things that are happening out here that are not being taken care of by the city of Reno and Washoe County is just astronomical. To be putting, you talk about homeless people and not having enough homes for residents, but yet you have residents who own homes, own property, and can't have them. You've taken them illegally. Now it's time for you guys to step up and do the right things. It's time for you to start doing what needs to be done. Maybe there needs to be an investigation from the Attorney General's office on malfeasance for the cities and county for not doing what is right. There's issues out there besides needing to make more homes. You need to take care of what's here. You just can't keep asking more people to come and not take care of what you already got. There is respect for you guys as long as there's respect for us, and the respect has not been there. It's obvious by the senior citizens that were standing up behind me when I was talking this morning. It is just awful to see them displaced out of their own home that they've paid years for, and can't have it because of the fact that between Washoe County and the city of Reno, your affluent water and your storm waters have flooded that area. And you're not doing anything to get rid of the water for them or protect it for this coming winter. That goes along with a church that has no protection. You put the HESCO barriers, that church was underwater all spring and half of the summer. They're finally redoing their church, and they're doing it slowly because they're afraid, just like everybody else, that the water's going to come back because you didn't step up to do what you were told or asked to do. Also, I was told by your representatives in Washoe County certain things were going to be done, and they've not been done. So we've been lied to, and we have not had action either. And I do think for the interest that I have gotten.
Thank you, Ms. Holtstill. Next, I have Ms. Victoria Edmondson, followed by Ms. Donna Robinson.
Hi. Victoria Edmondson for the record. I don't know if I said that last time. Cold Springs resident. I just have some questions about what is going on with Stonegate. I understand we need housing. There's over 1,000 elderly people in temporary rental inadequate units right now, and more are getting displaced every day. But to just build housing in Stonegate that is not addressing the need that we need, sounds like we need multifamily. We don't need high-end homes. My question for the City Council is, why is a project of regional significance in a closed water and air basin not required to provide an environmental impact statement? That just seems rather wrong. 5,000 homes in our closed basin, we already have inversions in the winter from people burning wood. 5,000 more homes burning more wood. It's not right, you guys. In addition, 12 years ago, a former North Valley's CAB chairperson came to a meeting and said that it was identified that Cold Springs needs another exit out of the valley. Currently, there's only one. Stonegate wants to block off part of our access road, and that is the road that has been identified that needs to be used to help residents evacuate the valley in the event of a fire. We did have a fire out there, and that was the road that people were able to get to their homes and prepare to evacuate if necessary. And they want to discontinue that road. So Old North Virginia was identified years ago as being the road that needs to be extended and expanded in order to provide another exit out of the valley in the event of a fire. You just can't keep dumping treated water in White Lake Playa aquifer. You need a different solution. You can't bring in hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a day and not have an outflow plan for this closed basin. And one final thought, it's just so wrong. I mean, what's wrong with this picture? Let's build 5,000 high-end homes and schools under cancer-causing 345 kilovolt power lines in an area with 3 active fault lines, inadequate water supply and wastewater treatment, not to mention police and fire and transportation infrastructure.
Thank you.
Think about it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, I have Ms. Donna Robinson, followed by Mr. Danny Cleus.
Hi, Donna Robinson for the record. One of the things that I was hearing is we need more housing. I've had a unique experience living in an apartment for the past several months. I have seen 6 families in 2 buildings just right next to me move out because their rent gets raised. And this kind of interests me because when we attempted to go get a grant from the city to help the residents in Lemon Valley and were denied, it ended up going to a developer for low-income housing. My question is, and why isn't there some type of regulation that if you're going to approve these grants for these developers for low-income housing, after 1 year, the rents skyrocket and people can no longer live there when they're low income. My son lived in an apartment and had to move 3 times because they continually raised his rent. He'd get the low rent because he is considered low income, and he would live there, and then as soon as the lease is up, it's boomed up $300, $400, $500. Same with the residents that I live next to right now. So you are awarding these grants to these developers, which I have issue with because your residents need help. They have multi-million dollars to do these developments. They're getting these grants because they say, we're doing it for low-income housing, for people who make $15 an hour. Well, what regulations do you put on those grants to keep them from raising the rents on these people after 1 year? 1 year later, these people are being forced out of their apartments because they no longer can afford the rent because these apartment complexes are raising the rents on them. It's happening. Maybe you need to look into it. You're giving all these grants to these developers to do this. It amazed me when I would talk to a resident that I've only been living next to for 3 months, and they go, we have to move out. They raised our rent $500. We can no longer afford to live here. A single mom next to me, she had to move out because they raised her rent in a 1-bedroom apartment. And where are these people? You're creating a housing problem with making these people constantly move or be homeless. So if you're going to award this money to these developers on grants, which I already have an issue with, for low-income housing, what guarantees are you promising your residents that it's going to stay low-income housing? Because it's not there. After a year, these apartment complexes are raising the rents on these people and forcing them out. Something to think about, something to look at, something very serious. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Next, I have Mr. Danny Cleus.
Danny Cleus for the record. I see most of you guys before.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't just a North Valley's issue. This is South Reno. This is a Verdi issue. You guys want to go in there, boom, 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 build, build, build. Your engineers are great. Yes, they are. They get paid lots of money. Developers are great. They come in here. Where'd they go? It's just like the housing boom that happens. They don't stay until it's completed. They leave. Then who's left holding the bag? Your engineers are so great. Why is there so much flooding in the residential areas of Washoe County? They're great, all right. They're great of taking money. Y'all look at me like, oh, that doesn't really happen. Well, here, keep building, keep building. You talk about homeless people? Am I going to be next? Is this the year I'm going to be out of my house for good? We all know from Houston, from Louisiana, New York, everywhere around this country, floods happen. Insurances don't pay. Big problem. Look at Puerto Rico now. But yet, hey, let's keep on building. Nobody wants to fix the problem before they build. No, we got to get these permits through. No, you don't. If we don't have the housing, people aren't going to live here. Move on. Washoe County is only so big. We don't need this. We do not have transportation. We do not have, and this is my area, we do not have highways. You guys talk about water. In a drought for 7 years, our wells started going. Well, Fish Springs, okay. Recharge the aquifers, okay. Now look what happens. Nobody wants to maintain them. Nobody knows the science behind it. Been looking into aquifer recharging. Look at Australia. They have one hell of a plan. Nothing like what you're doing here. Anyways, that's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Cleus. Seeing no further public comment, I'll bring it back to the board. At this time, we are adjourned.